Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brew Built X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brew Built Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big Pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brew Built line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brew Built X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brew Built Conicals. You can trust Brew Built with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brew Built at morebeer.com.
Home brewers, craft brewers, beer lovers, beer drinkers.
Get ready for an all-new experience in information exchange and beer culture.
Your only source for live beer radio that brings expert brewers from around the globe
right to your home.
You're not just listening to broadcasters, it's the Brewcasters
on the Brewing Network.
Welcome back once again to the Brewing Network.
Yes, welcome.
Another great Sunday show in a hot and sweaty studio. I heard today that it's not just us that has the heat wave. Like, the whole country is hot as heck right now.
The whole country?
Something like that. That's what I heard. It's pretty much. I mean, there might be an exception or two, but everybody's really damn hot.
Okay.
So we don't have any right to complain today.
But it's not too humid around here.
Yeah.
I was talking to my brother, both brothers in Southern Cal. They said it's so humid and nasty and hot, 100 degrees too.
Yeah. See, humidity right now would be horrible.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But we got it all right. The studio's feeling pretty good today, and we have beer this week, which is good because last week, unbeknownst to the listeners at home, we had a beer crisis like 5 minutes before the show.
Yeah, I showed up
and
no beer. I was aghast.
I don't know, John. Whose fault was that?
Yeah, you looked at John and said, "Did you call Dr. Scott?"
Yeah.
He looks, no.
It's like, no. But I was at the ale house, so.
You had beer.
I had beer.
John took care of self.
I took care of myself.
So I took precautions. I stopped.
Yeah. Attaboy. I knew you would, Dr. Scott. I didn't bother calling because I knew you'd know.
He would come through.
Yeah. We got some extras, too, some left from last week, and there's plenty of beer this week, so we could get good and schnockered by the end of the show. Who knows? Yeah. That would be weird, right?
Well, it's hot enough in here, so.
Sweat it right
Gotta
out.
stay hydrated.
All right, so we'll do a quick recap of last week and get into this week because we got to get a lot of things done in a little bit of a shorter time because we're going to play a lecture for you guys at the end of the show today. Although if it goes 2 hours, we don't really care. But just so for those of you on the East Coast, if you want to hear the good lecture we got coming at the end, we'll try to cut it a little short so we can get that playing. Last week we did not have a guest, but we did. A very nice lecture on wort chilling, which covered all the bases about how to chill and all the techniques to do it and why you need to do it. And we actually had our first caller argument, which was kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it was exciting.
I like that. It was the first time we got a caller to call in and say, hey, I think you guys are wrong and I'm right.
Yeah.
And I like that. That was cool.
It's pretty easy to get flustered.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah.
Or get a big argument.
Yeah. Exactly. And, we're just going to handle those as they come. We like them. I think that's cool. John was a bit like a deer in the headlights for a second. He's like,
what do I do?
Yeah. Yeah. And, but it was cool. And the guy ended up totally cool at the end too.
Yeah.
Just remember, we can always cut you off.
That's right. We have the hang up button. But he was awesome. And in the end, he said he was going to send us more beer. So that's cool.
Hey, call in, argue,
yeah.
and send beer.
And then send beer.
Yeah.
So that was fun, and the wort discussion was good. If you have any other questions about that, as usual, that are held over from last week, we'll be happy to put it in the discussion this week.
Chilling.
If you're just tuning in, and if it's your first time listening, you can go to the chat room to hang out with us and be able to ask questions. Our chat room moderator, Daniela, is there taking care of it for us today. Daniela, you want to say hi to the chat room kids?
Hi to everybody and the chat room kids.
We are lucky you got off work just in time to get here today.
Oh, yeah, and traffic was really bad.
She was angry when she got here.
Yeah. She came in cursing Americans. She walks in the door, I hate Americans!
Yeah, because I did my regular thing that I do on the Autobahn, like I'm on the left lane, of course, because I drive a fast car, and then I blinked with the lights and everything, but nobody would, screw over us, so that's just stupid.
That is a problem that we have here, is it's true that our left lane is considered the fast lane. If you're faster moving traffic, that's where you're supposed to travel, and you're supposed to move over to the right if you're not. But a lot of people just don't know that in America. No. And that's why we can't have an Autobahn here, because people don't know how to move over when there's a fast-moving vehicle coming up behind you. They instead feel that it's like time for them to stand their ground and prove a point. Like, no, it's my lane, and I don't care that I'm going slower.
I think they don't even notice you, actually.
Yeah, probably not.
I'm surprised you weren't at least swearing in 2 languages.
Well, that's what I did in a car.
Actually, she's funny because she speaks German, but she curses in French.
And Italian.
Yeah, so that's always fun to hear.
Well, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, that's cool. You made it on time. All right, so to go to the chat room, there's a big giant chat now button on our homepage. Don't bother registering. The chat room's still a little shady in that respect.
Yeah, just be a guest.
Yeah, go log in as a guest and just put in a nickname and put 2 numbers after the name. Like if your name is Roger, put Roger 03. Doesn't matter what it is, and that'll get you right in if you have any trouble. So come join us there. Lots of listeners like to hang out and give us questions, talk to Daniela, and converse with each other. So it's a good place to go and do that. And if you haven't registered for our forum yet, go there too, and there's lots of good information happening there. I got a funny bit I'm going to do in a little bit off of our forum, because some of those guys on there are awesome. They're always posting funny things. I just read this week that the post, it's a link to another blog site that has the prison house beer or wine made. Have you guys seen that? Where you're supposed to make it in a toilet or a garbage bag.
With only the stuff you can find there.
Yeah. But this is a guy who went through the whole experiment. If you can't find yeast, you use moldy bread. Not hard, so it still should be soft, but moldy, and you put it in a sock. And you throw that in with like some fruit juice and whatever kind of sugar you can find, and leave it for a week. And it's wine in the end.
Whoa.
Yeah, this guy was really funny. The link's on the website. I think it's in like off-topic stuff or general beer-related, something like that. Yeah.
I was going to say, just spit in it.
Well, he ended up with, if you read the thing, and the guy's a funny guy too, he just has funny things to say as he's doing it. He ended up with one of his wines was 14% alcohol, and the other one I think was 12, and he just threw in like a powdered drink mix and some like jelly, like gummy bears for his sugar use. Yeah, and then put the bread in a dirty sock and threw it in there, left it in his bathroom for a week.
What? Why?
I don't know why. Actually, it's a good question, but it's cool.
How do you test for alcohol percent when you're in prison?
Yeah, that I don't know, but he said out of he was just curious, so he went to a local brew shop to find I assume since he couldn't really do an OG, he probably found like a refractometer or something, right? You can tell alcohol with that.
I'm sure every prison has those.
Yeah. But, so anyway, that's some funny stuff, and I'm going to do a bit in just a few minutes,
cool.
Out of that. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about carbonation with you guys, and how to get proper carbonation, different methods of getting it, and,
how to keep it.
How to keep carbonation. Awesome. I am assuming that maybe some head retention things are going to fall into that discussion with carbonation, and, yeah. And then maybe some beer storage stuff at the end of that, I think, because keeping carbonation and keeping your beer fresh is usually a hot topic on the show. So we'll probably finish it up with a beer storage thing after the carbonation. Mm-hmm. On top of that, we don't have a guest this week, although we have Marin Brewing Company coming in next week, and they brew a lot of beer, that company. So I'm excited about them. This week instead, we're gonna play a lecture from the National Homebrew Competition that was in Baltimore. John went there. Those of you who are regulars know all about that. And he made some recordings for us. So this week, it's going to be, he bootlegged it.
They said it was okay. They did.
He recorded it first and asked after.
I did actually. Yeah.
That's fine.
I was like,
The guy's name is Phil Markowski. He's the brewmaster at Southampton Public House, which is in Southampton, New York. And he's the author of a book called Farmhouse Ales. So you're going to get a lot of good stuff about Belgian ales and is it Saison? Is that how you say it?
Saison.
Saison ales. Yeah. It's actually I listened to almost all of it as I was editing it, and it's awesome. The guy's got a lot to say, a lot of history in there about it, and then a lot of techniques about how to get proper fermentation and what temperatures and things like that. So it's really a good discussion if you're into Belgians and other kind of strong ales like that too. So
he definitely talks about the yeast too. I was really moody.
He was moody, or the yeast is moody?
The yeast is moody.
Okay,
it's got to ferment like at 85 or something like that.
Oh, right.
Very, very warm for an ale.
That's perfect for my brewing then.
Yeah, you're set.
I don't have to change a thing.
Just put it in the studio here.
Exactly. All right, so that's about an hour-long lecture that we'll get running for you around the 6:30 hour right there. So, if you want to listen to the whole show, it'll go till about 7:30 or 8 o'clock tonight. But you know how it goes. If we get on a roll, we'll be here a while.
Yeah.
And that's up to you guys,
We're on
too.
our first beer, so.
If you have anything to say, any questions to ask, you can call 888-401-BEER. And that works for anybody in the, northern North American continents. I think you can call on that 888 number. If you're in Europe or Australia, I think you can't call on that number.
What about Canada?
Canada can.
Yes,
yeah.
they can.
Yeah, because we got a call from New Zealand a couple of weeks ago, right? And no, not New Zealand, from Nova Scotia. There you go. And I think we got another call from Canada before. So 888-401-BEER. Daniela says that Europe can call too.
It's just not toll free.
But if they dial the 888 number, it comes through?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
I'm positive.
How do you know?
She did live there.
Because I talk to the INS from Germany all the time. I talk to the INS from Germany all the time, and they have a toll-free number too, and I had to dial them from Germany on. So.
Although they could have an international toll-free number, you don't know?
Well, they should, but they don't.
You don't know that?
I do know that. I know everything about the INS.
Okay. I'm sure you do, actually. You're here, so. All right, so there you go. I guess you can still call. 888-401-BEER if you have any questions. All right. I got some news for you guys as usual. Found some interesting topics.
Let's share, please.
Yes, I love doing this part of the show because
Where he comes up with this stuff.
Where do you get this?
I don't know.
How long do you keep this going? I'm curious. This will be good.
I'm thinking of, I had a suggestion from somebody, I think it was an email, because we're talking about doing other shows in the Brewing Network, which we are developing. I might do a 1 hour daily show. I talked about this before, but what I'll do is play music, and I think, because I'm really good at finding this weird new stuff, and a lot of it I can find that has to do with beer or drinking in general. I might do it a daily thing, like from, 10 to 11 or something, and just play music and read my weird news, because I like it. It's good
Come
stuff.
home from work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, honey, got to read a lecture.
Exactly. All right, so my first story, true to form of finding good, weird stuff. An off-duty cop allegedly shot a man for knocking over his beer. Which to me is, good reason to shoot somebody.
Well, there's probably a state.
Justice was served.
There's probably a state where that's legal.
Yeah, right. Well, this was in New York, and it was not legal. An off-duty police officer ended up on the wrong side of the law Friday night, shooting a man who had purposely knocked over the cop's beer in a Lower Manhattan bar, police said on Saturday. Bernard Marty, who was assigned to Harlem's 25th precinct, was drinking at Cordato's Deli and Bar at 94.5 Greenwich Street. I wish we had half addresses. Don't you think that's cool? 94.5. I don't know why, but that's just kind of cool. It means you got a lot of damn buildings out there is what it means. It was at 10:30 at night Friday. A man knocked over Marty's beer, police sources said. That man voluntarily bought Marty a new beer, but intentionally then knocked it over again, spilling it all over Marty's clothes, sources said. Marty took out his gun and showed it to the man, who swatted it away. The gun discharged and one round went into the man's left thigh, police said. It's a likely story, the old, I accidentally shot the guy in the leg story.
Why would you even show the gun at that point?
Because he spilled his beer, John. Come on.
Okay.
Yeah. Take it up a notch.
Yeah.
After that, Marty hurried out of the bar and into his car and was followed by people from the bar who saw the shooting, and people alerted nearby officers, and they pulled Marty over. He was charged with assault and criminal possession of a weapon and was immediately suspended without pay. So, good. There you go. I don't know. I might shoot somebody if they intentionally knocked over my beer.
Well, no, it was twice.
Let's talk.
It was twice, exactly.
Twice.
I mean, and I think he was asking for it where he got all sort of nice and he bought him a new one and then knocked that over on him. Come on. You know?
Brand new slacks.
He was asking for
Jerk.
it.
Yeah.
So, that's my best
Yeah,
one
the
for
slack
the day.
jaws like that deserve suck the pipe.
And come on, it's a flesh wound. He got shot in the leg.
Hey, baby.
He's not,
suck it up.
He's not dead.
Hey, put on a crutch, you'll be fine.
Suck it up.
New York pansy.
Probably a tourist. A real New Yorker wouldn't have said anything.
Yeah, exactly. He would have dug it out with a screwdriver and
dirty screwdriver
and said, "My bad."
Or he would have dug it out, then bought him another beer, and then spilled it again.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Have you guys noticed that there's never any nutritional information on alcohol labels? But it's pretty much a requirement now in most states. I don't think it's a federal law, although it may be, that you have to put nutrition information on consumer food goods. Right. But actually, liquor companies, including beer and wine, are prohibited from putting their nutrition information on the bottle. It's actually a law that says they can't do it.
Why is that? I wonder.
I'm not really sure. I think mostly it's because they're not considered a nutritional
not
food item.
Talk to the
and
monks
so they
about
don't,
that one.
Yeah, really.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And talk to anybody. You know, we've talked about their nutritional value quite a bit.
Yeah.
But the Food and Drug Administration says that it's not a nutritional item, and therefore it would be misleading to put nutrition information on the package. But this particular
it's
story,
not nutrition. That's not what you're here for.
Yeah.
You're not drinking to get healthy.
This article says the alcohol industry is the most regulated consumer product on the food and beverage market. And while all products for consumer consumption are required to have nutrition labeling, the alcohol industry is actually prohibited from putting the information on its product. Now the world's largest alcohol manufacturer, which is, I guess it's pronounced Diageo, has petitioned the government to allow them to put nutrition labels on bottles so that drinkers can know the calories, carbs, and alcohol content and servings per container. It's not the first time a petition has been filed with the agencies that regulate the alcohol industry, but for the first time, public comment is being sought about whether or not the public thinks there should be nutrition information on there.
Servings per container or containers per serving?
It's a good question. You're going to have to go and put in your public opinion.
Dr. Scott with a question. Yeah.
One consumer group, the Center for Science and Public Interest, says because alcohol is a drug and alcoholic beverages are not a source of nutrition, they should be labeled effectively but differently from food. Beer and wine industry officials have expressed concern that one label will not fit all and say different types of alcohol should be treated differently, which is true. You know, beer is a different alcohol than vodka, obviously.
That's true. What about wine, too? I mean, it's a different...
And they have different nutritional information. But, you know, still one label could kind of accommodate, you know, all different foods have, you know, obviously foods have different nutritional information, different contents, and one label's doing it for them. Let's see. Diageo says consumers should be given more credit than that, and it's willing to give labels a shot. So public comment is open until September. You can visit the Diageo-sponsored website to file a comment with the government, either for or against allowing labels. And you can do that at www.knowyourdrink.com. So if you have an opinion, you want to see nutrition values on your alcohol, it's knowyourdrink.com. You can go ahead and cast a vote either way, I guess.
Water.
Hey, how do you get
vitamin B?
How do you get your nutrition?
Yeah, you consume a lot of beer, Jay. I mean,
that's my nutrition.
Yeah,
I'm on like a beer and cheese diet. I eat a ton of cheese and drink a lot of beer. Although, since our German friends have gone back to Germany, I've really cut down my consumption.
Oh yeah,
of cheese.
Yeah. Well, whereas I was buying like 2 kegs a week when they were here, I haven't bought a keg in 3 weeks.
Nice.
I've only bought a couple 6-packs. Although we've had some leftovers. Drake's had some beer left over here.
We haven't seen a keg around here.
Yeah, there's not been a keg. I was going to actually go buy one today, but I didn't have a car, so I'm going to do it tomorrow.
No,
yeah.
Dr. Scott brought beer.
Yeah, but I got the kegerator. It's lonely. It needs a beer in it. You know,
it's so easy when you just get that tap handle.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a cake for you soon in a week. I'll get you that Calcommon that I made. I'll get a cake for you.
Awesome. Well, there we go. Maybe I can wait till then. We'll see. If not, I'll finish the one I buy.
We'll put it on the side. I'm sure I get through it.
Yeah, true. But I did cut down my consumption. But just something about just hanging out with Germans that makes you drink. Like, for example, I wasn't really drinking the other day, and then I got on the phone with Flo. You know, you guys know Flo, and he was on the show. Some of you listeners know. I was talking to him on the phone, and just talking to him made me drink. I ended up having like 3 beers right then. Or 6.
Daniela says 6.
Brings out the best in you.
All right, whatever. All right, I got another story for you guys. You know, if there's any name that is a buzz name in craft brewing right now, it's Dogfish Head. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I am hearing this name all over the place.
Yeah, they're just booming right now.
They are, and the guy, I don't know if he's just a well sought after, knowledgeable guy. You met the guy, didn't you, John, in Baltimore?
That's cool.
Okay. I don't know if it's just that he has a reputation for being like a go-to guy with certain knowledge, but if not, then he's just really good at marketing, because in a lot of the things that I read, his name comes up, and a lot of people call him to get an interview and things like that. And anyway, this story is no exception. A brewer recreates a 9,000-year-old beer, is the headline. A U.S. brewer has recreated what was the first beer brewed in China 9,000 years ago. Sam Calagione, is that how he says it?
Yep.
Calagione of the Dogfish Head Brewery in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, used rice, honey, and grape and hawthorn fruits. He got the recipe from archaeologists who derived it from the residues of pottery jars found in the late Stone Age village of Jiahu. The residues are the earliest direct evidence of brewed beverages in ancient China, reports National Geographic. They're quoted as saying, "We can't prove that an alcoholic beverage was definitely produced in the jars. The alcohol's gone, obviously, but it's not that difficult to infer," said Patrick McGovern, an archaeochemist at the University of Pennsylvania. McGovern, an expert in the origins and history of alcoholic beverages, performed the chemical analysis on the pottery. He had also found a 2,700-year-old alcoholic beverage in a royal tomb in Turkey, and he had the Dogfish Head Calagione brew that also. That one's called Midas Touch Golden Elixir.
That one I've heard of.
You've heard of that? Okay. Yeah. That was also based on a 2,700-year-old recipe that they recreated. So McGovern again turned to Dogfish Head to brew up the ancient concoction from China, which will be sold as Chateau Jiahu. He says it's gold in color with a white head similar to champagne bubbles and with a very intriguing taste and aroma. Which is not too descriptive, but
creative guy.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Just to infer the ingredients from an old piece of pottery.
Why not?
And then try to make a beer out of it.
That kind of sounds like Schumann, golden with a white head.
Champagne bubbles.
So there you go. Dogfish Head back in the news again.
He's doing a lot right now. A lot of new things in the industry, seems like.
I think so. And maybe that's why people are talking
about it. Well, that's what everybody wants to hear about lately.
New stuff.
Vinny, this guy, anybody that's, the cutting edge, kind of new, cool stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's what people are into, so there you go.
What's weird about those pro brewers is they, help each other grow, too. It's like a community of home brewing, but on a professional level.
Yeah. You're right. Anheuser-Busch has won its latest battle over the Budweiser name war with Czech beer maker Budvar, and that war's been going on since 1906. Now I know of Budvar, but I didn't know that it was actually in a battle with Budweiser. I actually assumed that they were affiliated, which is probably why there's a lawsuit going on, because a lot of people assume that they're affiliated. And Budvar uses trademark names like Bud and even Budweiser on some of their labels. So this time, a Hungarian court has ruled in favor of the St. Louis-based brewer, ordering cancellation for Czech beer maker Budajovický Budvar's use of the Bud, Budweiser, and Budvar, and Budweiser Beer Budvar labels in Hungary. The court concluded that the term Bud was not a reference to the city, which is called, as close as I can get it, Český Budajovice, where Budajovický Budvar is based. Anheuser-Busch said Friday, and therefore that the Czech brewer could not claim it as a so-called appellation of origin. Such a claim would have entitled the company to use the name. So they could have kept using Bud if people referred to their city as Bud, because the city is Budajovice. But they don't refer to it as that. So this Hungarian court said, no, in our province you have to stop using Bud. The two breweries have been battling over Budweiser and other trade names since 1906 and are still involved in about 40 lawsuits worldwide.
Wow.
Anheuser-Busch claims it was using the Budweiser name since 1876, 19 years before Budajovický Budvar came into existence. So, but a lot of the trademark wars in all of Europe, Budvar has actually won and been able to keep using the name. So it's significant because Budweiser actually won this one in Hungary.
Wow. I heard he had won, the Budweiser had put a lot of money into it.
To the lawsuits?
That's like 2 years ago I was reading the story too, and it's still going on.
Yeah.
Put a lot of money into Budvar or just into the lawsuits?
No, into the lawsuit. Yeah. Augie Busch has a lot of
friends.
A lot of friends, a lot of money.
Right. Exactly.
And
number one
now,
beer
but you can
in
get
the world.
Budweiser Budvar is just called Czechvar now.
Yeah.
And actually I almost bought it today, but I grabbed for the
Yeah.
The Polners are very good.
Now, Budweiser, just to end it, was quoted as saying, "It's another significant court decision for Anheuser-Busch and reinforces our commitment to protect our famous trademarks throughout the world." Hey, good for you, Budweiser.
Good.
Protect your trademark. That's important.
Turf.
They pretty much own the beer world anyways.
They do. They're the number one. They're the number one beer company in the world.
Yeah.
Bud Light is the top, hands down, by far, best-selling light beer in the world, and Budweiser is the best-selling, quote-unquote, full beer in the world.
Try to get them in here.
Yeah. Hey, I'd be interested in doing it, you know. I'm not going to have a sissy lecture with them, but I'd like to ask
Fairfield,
them.
right.
There's one in Fairfield, that's right.
Yeah, it's not very far.
No.
We could ask him in.
I left a message with him, actually.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Just
about coming in?
Show over there.
I got to be up front with them though before they come in. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we all drink Budweiser and even like Budweiser. Yeah. I'm going to have to tell them beforehand that it's a homebrew show, it's a craft brew show, and what we want to ask you, I guess, is about, you know, your process and definitely your beer. But we make fun of you all the time. You know, I mean, I got to be honest.
Right? How do we know that he doesn't even drink Budweiser?
You could be absolutely right.
Yeah. If you're a brewer, you probably know good beer.
Yeah. How could you be, like, let's say the brewmaster in Fairfield has been brewing for, 20, 30 years. Let's just say for a second that he has. Yeah. You gotta assume that he's not really just drinking Bud anymore.
No.
And he's probably even rarely drinking
hope
Bud.
Not.
That's a good question, though. Although, I bet because it's so corporate, he wouldn't really be allowed to say, I don't drink Bud. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if that if we got that word out. What if we crushed the Budweiser empire by having like Mr. Bud in here come in and saying, yeah, I don't even like my beer.
I don't even touch this stuff. I just crunch some numbers and push some buttons.
We would be the cure.
That'd be awesome. All right.
The empire tumbles.
You guys want to hear some funny stuff real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
No.
I hate funny stuff.
No funny stuff.
This was posted in our forum, and I got an email about it again. The guy said you might want to check this out. He told me to read them at the end of the show after we're half cocked, but I'm gonna do it now anyway. They're funny either way. Due to increasing products liability and litigation, American beer brewers have accepted the FDA's suggestion that the following warning labels be placed immediately on all beer containers. Okay? First warning. The consumption of alcohol may leave you wondering what the hell happened to your bra. Second warning. The consumption of alcohol may make you think you are whispering when you're actually not. Warning number 3. The consumption of alcohol is a major factor in dancing like a retard. And I've seen that in John personally.
Thanks.
Just kidding. Okay, warning number 4. The consumption of alcohol may cause you to tell your friends over and over and over again that you love them. And I can vouch for that.
I love you.
Personally, by the way. Warning number 5.
I haven't had enough beer yet.
The consumption of alcohol may cause you to think you can sing. I'm a victim of that.
What's love got to do with it?
The consumption of alcohol may lead you to believe that ex-lovers are really dying for you to telephone them at 4 a.m. Come on.
Yeah, we've all been there.
You've all done the drunk dial.
Yes.
Drinking and dialing.
Yeah. The consumption of alcohol may make you think you have mystical kung fu powers, resulting in you getting your ass kicked.
When Dr. Scott's a little tipsy, yeah, he breaks out his karate.
His kung fu.
Yeah, he does.
The consumption of alcohol...
Because you pissed me off.
Yeah, that's not alcohol. The consumption of alcohol may make you think you can logically converse with other members of the opposite sex without spitting. I can't, actually. The consumption of alcohol may cause you to roll over in the morning and see something really, really scary. Yeah. That I don't think I had done, but I wish I had.
Yeah.
The consumption of alcohol is the leading cause of inexplicable rug burns on the forehead. All right. The consumption of alcohol may create the illusion that you are tougher, smarter, faster, and better looking than most people.
Yeah.
I have a feeling Daniela has suffered from that. She's laughing quite a bit.
I think she's laughing at you.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Yeah. It's a reflection of you.
The consumption of alcohol may lead you to believe you are invisible.
Hey, check this out, guys.
Go ahead.
No, okay.
Yeah. Oh no, that's not the last one yet. The consumption of alcohol may lead you to think that people are laughing with you. And finally, the consumption of alcohol may cause a disturbance in the time-space continuum, whereby gaps of time may seem to literally disappear. which happens to be like 3 times a week.
Okay.
The old blackout.
Yeah.
You know, they say if you've ever blacked out from alcohol, you're an alcoholic.
Oh yeah?
Yep. That's
I still don't believe there was a cat. my words in the morning was, there was a cat.
Yeah. It's the biggest telltale sign, they say. If you can ever remember a time where you didn't remember parts of the night before, you're an alcoholic.
But I don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
If you can't remember them.
There's tons of classifications of alcoholism, actually. Pretty much everybody's an alcoholic. If you listen to it, if you go to an AA meeting, everybody's an alcoholic. If you never drink, except when you go out to social situations, but then you drink because everybody else is drinking socially, even if it's just a couple cocktails, they say that that's a form of alcoholism because you're doing it because everyone around you is doing it.
Screw them.
Which is alcoholism.
No, because you're a binge drinker.
Yeah.
1 beer.
Right.
For you, it's a binge.
Yeah, it's true. I had a friend call me a couple weeks ago because he was concerned about his drinking and he had started to think about it.
And he called you?
He called me because he's like, if anybody knows about alcoholism, it's going to be you. So I'm curious, I drink such and such amount of beer, a week, and, you got to drink at least that or, most likely more. So do you consider yourself an alcoholic, and then therefore am I an alcoholic, was his question. And I told him that yes, by the standards of Alcoholics Anonymous, he is an alcoholic because he has at least a beer a day and usually like 3 or 4. And AA would say that you're an alcoholic if you do that. Yeah.
I feel guilty now.
Yeah. I just say it makes you a happier and healthier person. That's my...
You have the news stories to back that up, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I am on a crusade each week to prove that. And I will keep on my crusade.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to get to a silly little thing we're going to do for just about 5 minutes. And then, what do I got on there? Then I think we're gonna do a tasting. I got some Belgian beers in here this week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was hanging out with Drake's on Friday night. I went to play poker at Drake's Brewery, and this guy, he showed me and Daniela all around the brewery, and he has 2 huge walk-in refrigerators, as you would expect. But one of them has a shelf that goes all the way around this like, I don't know, 25-yard wall, this huge wall. Okay. And the top shelf is all filled with beers from around the world. Apparently he's been in the Beer of the Month Club for years.
You think you would have drank some?
And I guess he can't drink enough. I don't know. Because when I was leaving, he's like, take some beer. And I said, yeah. So I came home with a 6-pack of beer, and a few of them are Belgians. And since our lecture later on in the show today is going to be about farmhouse ales, let's do a tasting. We're going to do one here in a few minutes, and then we'll do another one at the end of the show just before we get to the lecture. Sound good to everybody?
That's great.
All right. Awesome. So we'll be right back. It's the Brewing Network. Thanks for tuning in.
The Brewing Network. Saving your life. 1 beer at a time.
Oi! Oi!
Thank you, John.
Oi! Oi! Oi!
Wow, you sounded just like him. I didn't know if it was you or the recording. John's been drinking all day.
Yeah, I have.
All right.
I was out on the water, man. I had to. It was hot.
Yeah, you were out the Delta or something,
on the Delta, jumping in the river.
Wakeboarding?
No. It was too much debris, but...
Really?
Yeah.
That's the Delta. That's where you get your water from, too.
I know. We brew with that water. That's pretty scary.
Cool. We should start brewing lambics then.
Yeah.
Right?
We could.
You don't even need to throw the old sock in there.
Yeah, you don't.
Just dip your car away and you're set.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
Add some sugar.
All that septic tanks running off. Yummy.
All right. We're going to do a quick little thing here and then do our tasting of a Belgian before we move on. Here's what I'm interested in. I like to keep records for posterity. You know, like the old put things in a time capsule and bury it for 20 years kind of thing.
You're such a thoughtful guy.
I just like to do that. I think that people should know how things advance and how they change and be able to look back at how things once were compared to how they are now, for example.
I joined 24-Hour Fitness yesterday.
So I'm noticing that since I started homebrewing, I've had an unexplained growth in my abdomen area. I don't know what exactly it's for, but I've put on a few inches. My work pants have gone from where they were to where they are now. Let's just say that. Which is a few sizes bigger than where they were last year.
So he's afraid of getting chunky here, and he's going to drag the rest of us down.
Well, not necessarily, because I'm not afraid to embrace my new growth. So you're thinking that I'm coming at this in the sense of I want to measure our bellies and then either keep it in check or reduce that measurement. I'm actually more interested in the growth and how many inches I can put on over the next year or so. So I think what we'll do, and I'm not saying that I'm going to intentionally, grow my beer gut.
Please don't.
Is what I'm
winter's coming up. You want to store up.
I got to store up. That's right. And the thing is that's cool to me is that we can almost entirely attribute mine to beer because I don't eat regularly. So I'm not eating I don't eat fast food. We've talked about this before. So it's not that I'm eating unhealthy foods that are putting on weight.
You're just not eating.
I'm just not eating in general.
It's a balance.
I eat twice a day. I eat a full dinner, but it's usually a healthy dinner. Right. Sometimes we'll get into some fatty foods, but that's no big deal once in a while. And I eat like sandwiches for lunch. So I'm not eating fatty foods. So what's cool about my measurement in particular is that whatever growth we experience is going to be solely attributed to beer and lack of exercise. So
say that a little louder. Lack of exercise.
Yeah. So I thought that I'd have Daniela go ahead and measure us all. And then once a month on the show, we'll do it, 4 shows from now.
So what's the day? The 24th.
We'll remeasure. And, you don't have to shoot for one way or the other. Just be yourself and we'll see what happens. And it's for posterity's sake. You get to know a little more about yourself and how much you've grown.
So handicap.
And no sucking in, right?
Handicap for age?
Yes.
Show me the whole thing.
Yeah, you definitely get a handicap. Yeah. Let's see. Dr. Scott gets 2.5 inches for age.
Because I've got 20 years on you.
So Daniela is right now measuring John. We got one of those cloth, those fabric measuring tapes so that we get a proper thing. Now, what's John?
John is a 33.
A 33.
Yeah.
Now, for you folks at home who want to play along, I think this will be a great idea. And we can maybe even give a prize for like the most or the least. I think we're just going to give a prize for the most growth because that's more fun. After, I don't know, say a couple of months.
6 months.
Yeah. And hey, we're on the honor system here too, kids. So maybe what we'll do is we'll create a topic in the forum, a new topic that's for beer bellies. I've wanted to do that anyway so that people can send in pictures and things like that. And so that's what we'll do. Okay. So in order to participate, you have to measure the actual belly, which is going to be right around the belly button area, right? Are you going just below? Because you're a little low, I think, Danny. Yeah. So you have to actually cover the belly button. If you go lower, you're going to miss out on some girth. If you go higher, you're going to miss out on some girth. So for those of you at home, take your measuring tape and wrap it right around. So John was at 33 inches. Is that correct? At belly button height?
Yes.
You need to double check.
I'll do it again. I'm going to double check now.
This is important.
But I can tell you what Dr. Scott is right now.
Go ahead.
He's a good 37.
Is that right? Now, there's no half here. It's a strong 37. Wow. It's weird how the belly seems to go in round numbers. I don't know why it does that, but it does.
John is still a 33.
John's a 33.
All right, now let's
Doc's a 37. Compared to us, he gets a 2-point handicap. So 35, you're not doing too bad, Doc. Okay, I got to stand up here too. I'll be the last one here. And go ahead.
Yeah.
Gotta check that thing. Now, I'm not going to push it. Let me stand properly.
Measure his inseam, too.
Yeah,
and relax, Jay. Relax.
Hey, that's not my belly. Oh, yeah, it is.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I gotta stop talking for a second or it's going to move my belly.
That's always moving.
It's looking good.
What am I at?
You are 39.
What?
39.
Measure that again. There's no way I'm a 39.
Wow.
If I'm a 39, I'm taking Doc's 2 points back.
You're right. She was wrong. You're 40.
Am I really? I'm not a 39.
You're so a 39.
Oh,
yeah. 39? Yes. Oh, man.
I think you've had all your growth. We should have measured you earlier.
Should have. Wow.
How's that bike look?
Yeah, right? I gotta get, I didn't expect to feel this way. I thought I'd be like, okay, 34, 44-ish, and I'd be happy to get up to like a 40 just for fun.
Wow.
But now that I'm already pretty much at 40, that's not much fun.
So the game's over.
Yeah.
Game over.
No. It's not over. I'm still interested in seeing. I'm not going to intentionally grow it, but I'm not going to fight it if it does grow. Yes. I'm going to embrace my growth.
Embrace it.
And I think that in this business, it's a sign of being a brewing professional, actually, because you got to try a fair amount of beer to know about beer, right?
Yeah.
And I'm willing. It shows that I'm willing to make that sacrifice
for the better good.
I'm curious to know right now if anybody wants to call in with their measurement if they happen to be doing it at home. It's all good fun. Don't worry. You know, we don't all have to look like I don't know who looks real good. Some dude in a magazine, right?
Yeah, that dude.
Yeah.
They don't have a beer in their hand, though.
Daniela
Daniela
actually really likes beer bellies, don't you?
I think beer bellies look awesome, and I don't like the dudes in the magazines. They're just way too skinny. Beer bellies, they have something very, I don't know, just very rough to it.
Yeah, rough.
Yeah, it's like real men need beer bellies.
Now, is there a cutoff point from where it becomes...
No.
There's no... What? There's no cutoff?
Is there a cutoff point with breast?
No. she makes a good point. So, are you saying that like 65 inches is fine? As long as it's all just a beer belly?
You know, we in Germany don't measure in inches, so I have no idea what you're talking about. But
well, if I'm a 39...
Oh, yeah, you're not big, yes.
So that's almost, a meter. It's almost double what I am.
That's a meter.
Is 65 a meter?
Well, maybe it depends on how tall the man is, too.
Meter? Yeah. Is it really? I've got a 1 meter belly.
What?
Yeah.
Oh!
Holy cow. That's great.
You look just fine.
Okay.
That's 100 centimeters.
So if anyone wants to call in, it's 888-401-BEER, and you could tell us your measurement. But it has to be recent. You had to have done it like along with us, or you can put it in the chat room too. You know, just grab any, and even if you take a string and wrap it around and then put it up against a tape measure.
Or we could fly Daniela out there to measure.
She'll do it. Yeah. Oh, Danielle, give her. What do you got?
I have Rick from Connecticut with a 44.
That's
Smoking.
Yeah.
I think that's my dad, actually. Let's get him on the phone. Dad, call in right now. 888-401-BEER. People want to know who the Brewcasters Pop is, and I want to talk to you about your 44-inch belly, too.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to be on a diet, so 888-401-BEER. Call. Okay.
Don't think of it as a meter around your belly. Think of it as 100 centimeters.
That's a lot of centimeters.
That is a lot of centimeters, man.
You can see those centimeters just melting.
I'm like a desk right now. I'm like a small study desk.
You're bigger than a yard of ale.
I am. Wow. That must be why I can fit a couple yards of ale in me before I have to pee or anything else.
Yeah, it's all bladder. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I just was pushing out or something. What do you think? No?
I thought it was sucking in.
Yeah, me too.
I was trying to get a nice, like, relaxed fit. Wow. 39. Daniela says I'm usually bigger if you can't hear that on the microphone. Wow. Okay.
What hour of the day?
It depends on, like when I wake up I'm smaller, but by mid-evening, you know, I'm a lot bigger after a few beers. Hey, we had a call. Let me just do this again really quick. We had a call at the break about the chat room again. If you're confused about how to get into the chat room, it's the button on the main page that says chat now. It's a white button. Don't go to the forum. Go to the chat now. Go in as a guest. Don't bother registering. That's at the bottom left of the screen. And then put in a nickname with 2 digits after it, and you'll be fine. So there you go, in case you were wondering how to get in there. I think Pops is calling in right now.
2 digits.
Is that him?
Hey, Rick.
All right, hey, no small talk. Just tell him to hang on.
No.
Let's get this guy.
Chatting her up over there.
Are you ready? Oh, it's not Pops or what?
Robert, okay, Robert, you're going on the air.
Robert. Oh, is it a measurement though? Okay, we'll take it. Hang on. Let me figure out how to pick him up here. Okay, go ahead.
Hey.
Robert.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm drinking a nice home brew right now. It's a London Pride.
Nice.
Clone.
Cool.
And I've got a little thing here. My waist is about a 44, but
okay.
What y'all were talking about up there at the belly button.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
The biggest part.
That puts you at about, I'd guess about 50.
50.
Yeah,
wow.
So, a good 6 inches out.
Are you going to attribute all that to beer?
Yeah, is that beer?
Well, I'd say about 98% of it is.
And then 2% pizza?
McDonald's.
Pizza and Frogwa. I'm a chef.
Oh,
there you
okay,
go.
There you go. You know what? I'm actually glad you gave us the waist measurement because that's a good point of reference as to how far that sticks out, right? Because he's got his belly is 6 inches past his waist, right?
Thing's over.
Yeah.
Well, Dunlap.
Wow. All right, here. What's your name? It's Roger.
Robert.
Robert. Okay, I'm writing you down here. Robert, and you're at what you said 50, right?
50.
Mm-hmm.
50. Okay.
50.
I'm gonna keep you. Where are you from, Robert?
I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm writing this all down because when we do our measurement in a month, if you happen to be listening, I want you to call in and give us a new measurement.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
We gotta document this.
That's 50 inches. That's most of North Carolina.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Would you say that you've been consistent with your 50 inches, or this is a recent 50 inches?
Are you peaked?
Well, I just hit 30 a few years ago, so, well, actually it wasn't up until about 3 years ago.
Okay. And did you notice, an obvious increase when you started homebrewing?
Or when you started chefing?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Good beer.
Yeah, you got your...
Actually, it started when I was commercial fishing, when we were just sitting there waiting for the fish to come in. You didn't have anything else to do but drink beer all day.
As a commercial fisherman, so you were getting paid to do it.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
That's awesome.
Drank all day. 11 in the morning to about 11 at night.
Wow. I'm in the wrong business, guys.
Yeah. That's why they call it the dangerous catch.
Can you, right. Can you send me a link to get that job, please? Because I'm out of here.
Show up on the dock, and that's all it takes.
Okay, I can do that, actually. All right, hey, cool. Thanks for calling in, Robert. And I don't know,
right.
in probably 3 or 4 shows from now, we're going to do it again. So like I said, if you happen to be listening, I got your information. I'll do a call out to you to call us back in.
All right, man.
Awesome. Thanks for the call.
All right, man.
We'll see you.
Bye.
That was cool. All right.
That was
Didn't hear from my dad yet. Was he afraid to call and talk about his belly or something? Come on, Robert called in, and he's got a 50-incher. I would guess that I could be at 50 within a year if I tried. Actually, 6 months if I gave it an
20
effort.
more inches.
No. That's only 10. It's 11 more inches for me. I'm at 39.
Oh, I was thinking 30.
Yeah.
Hello, Rick.
Is that my dad calling in there now? Or is it just another belly guy?
It's just great, Rick. I'm going to put you on the air, okay?
All right. Got him on hold there? Yeah. All right. Hello?
Hello?
Hey, Dad.
I am on a diet. I walk a mile every night.
You do?
With a beer in your hand.
Yeah, with a pork chop in your hand?
On a treadmill at 3.5 miles an hour.
Wow.
So what's your measurement again?
44.
You only got 5 inches on me, actually. That's
I heard 39. You're catching up.
Yeah, I am catching up. You don't even drink beer though, really, do you?
I do. I have probably about 2 Coronas a week.
2 Coronas a week. So there's not going to put on the pounds.
No,
stepping up.
Are you hitting the drive-thru at McDonald's a couple times a week, Dad?
Nope. I'm eating very healthy.
Yeah, like what?
I'm eating. No, I'm on the Subway diet. I eat the 6-inch turkey grinder.
Do you really?
But you have to walk the Subway to make that work.
Yeah. You're really on the Subway diet?
Yes, I am.
So do you have a Subway sandwich every day?
Every single day, turkey with veggies, salt and pepper.
And how long have you been on that? How long have you been on that?
About 4 weeks.
And has it working for you? Were you at 60 before you started?
They're melting off.
Actually, I'm down to a 42.
It's hot down there, right?
I was at 44. Now I'm down to 42.
Okay. Well, it seems to be working then, I guess, huh?
It does. It's the treadmill that helps.
Yeah. Well, you ought to increase your beer consumption just to counter all that.
Well, Bonnie does that for me.
She drinks your beer for you? All right. Well, I just wanted to talk to you about your belly then, and I appreciate you calling in.
Okay, son.
Talk to you soon, Dave.
Take care.
Bye.
That's great.
What a crazy
Your
guy.
pops called in.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Should have had him tell, stupid stories about me or something, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole other segment for another show.
We could have gone on for a while about that. All right. Good old Pops out in Connecticut. I ought to make him send us East Coast beer.
Yeah.
You know? What's he got to do? He didn't do anything.
You send us Coronas.
Yeah. Is Corona East Coast? No, Dad.
No.
It's South Coast.
South Coast.
Actually,
the third coast.
You guys see that movie, The Day After Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Which isn't that great of a movie. It's got some good effects. But you know what the best scene in the movie is, right? It's when the Mexicans actually close off the border to America and they won't let us across the border. Yeah. I think that's so funny. That's it's just great. They're like, nope, sorry guys, you suck. I just thought I'd bring that up real quick because I just saw it yesterday and then we were talking about the south border. I think there's another call coming in. Is it another Beer Belly? No, hang on. We got another caller.
There's obviously several out there.
I guess so. People like this. Hello, you're on the air.
Weird. Hey, this is Troy Federson from California.
Oh, is it Troy? Is that
Troy.
Right?
He's in the doze.
Yeah, I know some of you guys.
Oh, okay. What's up, Troy?
So I printed out a book not too long ago called The Drink Beer, Get Thin Diet.
Oh.
That's right up Justin's alley.
Yeah. Go on.
It's just about what you're talking about on some of these things, no nutrition information on these labels.
Yeah.
Because you can actually go to this book and it'll tell you the carbs for just about every beer you can imagine.
Right.
And its whole premise is if you limit your carbs and then have no more than 1/3 related to beer, you're going to be okay.
Oh, right.
And this guy's got his picture in there, how much weight he's lost.
Yeah.
So I recommend this if you want to just know. I mean, I think it's worth it for the carbs.
Absolutely. But then but see, now I'm thinking of your ratio here, which is only 1/3 of my carbs can come from beer, and I'm guessing right now that 60% of my carbs come from beer.
Look at total carbs.
A ballpark figure. I know. I'm telling you that 60% of my total
and you
carbs.
Thought you'd never use that 5th grade math.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
The problem is you can't have more than about 2 or 3 beers per day. If you want to have more, you have to drink Michelob Ultra.
Oh, come on.
Could he just eat less?
Well, that's the thing.
I like the way you're thinking, Doc.
Drink the beer but eat less food and just eat steaks.
That's pretty much what he does.
Right. Although, could it be chicken instead of steak? Because I don't really eat red meat.
I think anything but carbs except your beer.
Yeah. So if I'm having bacon, instead of my sandwiches that I'm eating every day, I can cut out the bread and just do that whole lettuce wrap thing.
Right? Yeah, you don't need that.
And then still drink the beer I want to drink. Right?
That's the whole idea.
You're gonna drink the beer anyway.
We're gonna lose weight.
Yeah, you're right. That's why I'm trying to find this loophole because I'm gonna drink the beer either way. Now, you say you printed this book out? Like you just get it online or what?
Yeah, you go to www.drinkbeergetThinDiet.com. And it's 160 pages, but the last half of the book is carbs for all the beers.
Okay.
And he had to go through a lot of stuff to get the breweries to collect all this for him, and then there's recipes in here too. But I'm not so much interested in cooking with the beer,
Ooh, that reminds me. I was going to talk to you guys about cooking with beer. Cooking with beer is good stuff, man.
Yeah. Good on chicken.
I would like to talk to that guy.
Cook a little, drink a little, cook a little, drink a little.
I want to get that guy in there to talk to him just about. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. His name's Bob Skilnick.
Okay.
I think I paid less than $4 to download this book, and you can probably get it on Amazon too.
Oh, that's worth it to me.
Can we borrow it from you?
Look at how cheap we are. $4.
You probably get it
from
that.
Borrow yours.
We'll just copy little pieces.
Get it for free on the Chinese website.
Yeah, we can find it. Come on.
Okay.
We got hackers. Drink beer, get thin. What a great marketing tool right there. I mean, it works for me already.
Don't distract the hackers because they're working on the website.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, cool. Hey, thanks, Troy.
Okay, bye.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Wait, Troy.
Yeah.
What are you drinking?
Oh, interesting, actually. I'm drinking an IPA from Guernsey, which is an island south of Great Britain. I just got back from London yesterday.
Ooh.
Nice.
Cool.
And what's weird is it's 3.8% alcohol by volume, so it's not a real IPA. It's kind of a malty, bitter kind of thing.
And they call it an IPA.
Well,
they call it IPA.
English beer.
Yeah.
Wow.
I tell you, the IPAs are just different. It's almost like ours actually shouldn't be called IPAs. Yeah. We think that those aren't IPAs, but it's actually more that ours aren't IPAs. Yeah. We should have come up with another name like.
So how is it?
Call it West Coast.
It's good beer?
I'm going to drink something else next. I'm going to drink a Czech beer next.
Okay, so it's not that good then, huh?
Yeah.
Well, don't call it a Budweiser.
Oh yeah. Hey Troy, correct me on the Budweiser thing that I screwed up.
Yeah, you butchered the name. It's České Budějovice Budvar.
That's the name of the city and the brewery?
It's the name of the city. So you got two famous brewing towns. You have Pilsen.
Yeah.
Everybody can say that. So of course that became famous, and now that you get the name Pilsner.
Right.
But who can say České Budějovice or whatever, České Budějovice? So
apparently
that
not
one
me.
You don't know as well. They just call it Budvar.
Right.
And of course they bought up Budweiser took the name,
Okay.
And it means king, so it's king of beers comes from that.
Gotcha.
And they're on equal footing there. You have basically, like here you have Miller, Coors, and Budweiser. There you've got Pilsen beer and the Var beer and maybe one other.
Okay. They should have changed their city's name. You know,
around
the beer would have been a lot easier.
Cheaper, too.
Screw history.
That's what I call history.
I think Dr. Scott mentioned you can get it under Czech Var name here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like it just store
everywhere.
Has a bunch of beer, really?
At Bevmo.
So Czechvar, I didn't want to say it. I say it every week. So Czechvar is Budvar?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, they just can't call it Budvar.
Here, right? Okay.
Yep.
It's a little different. They pasteurize it more. It's not quite the same thing.
It's not quite as fresh,
the
but
Pilsner Urquell is just not as good here either. But
right,
I think it's on par with that.
The Czech Var actually comes in brown bottles, which helps it a lot.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And does it have a Budweiser looking label on it? Like, is it red and white and all that too?
Yeah,
red
well,
and
it says
silver.
Czech Var in the same way that the original bottles say Budvar.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's got some old-fashioned ladies, you know.
Gotcha.
With the holding the beer mugs on it.
Oh, I like that.
That's not what you're looking at, though.
It's not? Okay. Hey, Troy, thanks very much.
Okay.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
See you, Troy.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Hey, we're getting good caller information in today.
That's the most phone calls we've ever had.
Yeah, like, for example, Robert in Charlotte has a 50-inch gut, and that's important.
Yes.
And I'm glad he called in to tell us.
Your dad in Connecticut's got a 44.
My dad's got a 44. If he keeps on this stupid Subway diet, though, he's going to be smaller than me the next time I see him.
He's got to walk.
Think about all the bread, though. What about
he
the bread?
lives up on like a mountain. I think it's a really long walk to the Subway. But I guess that's the point.
Only uphill.
Yeah, that's right. Down is easy. He could skateboard down and walk back. Would do it. Get to walking, Dad. Okay, you want to do a tasting? Of course you do. We got a Belgian beer here. It was given to me by our friend Roger over at Drake's, and he gave me a bunch of them. Oh, I had a really tall one in there I forgot to show you too, Doc, when I was showing you all the beers. He gave me a big one with like a cork in it and everything.
Damn you. Blast.
Yes. Blasted, man. So we're going to try this one just because it's sort of true to our lecture at the end of the show, and we're going to compare it to the Belgian style guidelines a bit. Although Dr. Scott says there's a lot of gray area with those too, so it's going to be interesting, but we'll just give you, we'll tell you what it's called if anybody here can pronounce it, and then we'll give you some of its style. I'll tell you already right now that it's of the blonde version of the Belgians. I think that there's an amber, there's a blonde and a dark, correct? Is sort of that's at least
fair.
According to the BJCP, it says that there's generally the three things, and this one is a blonde looking one. I'm just looking at it in their glasses here.
It smells sour.
It already smells sour. It could have been, who knows how long Roger's had it. He said he's been in the Beer of the Month Club for
that could
ages.
be on purpose, though.
And,
but he kept it nice, kept it cold.
Oh yeah, it was definitely cold, and I've kept it cold since he gave it to me. Let me take a little smell here.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if it's completely sour smelling.
There's
even
there's some bread in there.
It's kind of sour and citrus at the same. It's got a strong white head. I'll tell you that. It seems to be sticking around for a while. It's got that horsey.
That is the horse blanket goatee kind of.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna take a drink too. It's very carbonated.
Yes.
Almost like a champagne,
which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, it's actually very, very carbonated. All right, taking a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
What?
Ooh, it's lambic.
It's lambic?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've never had a lambic. I don't even know.
You have. There you go.
There you go.
This is a lambic?
Yep.
It's not a Belgian.
Well,
a lambic is
it's a Belgian lambic.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're noticing that because of the wild yeast flavors and things like that?
You can smell that aroma, that sour, horsey...
Which is coming from wild bacteria and stuff happening.
Wild yeast and bacteria on purpose.
I like it, though.
Yes.
It's good.
It's a lot of flavor in it.
True to style?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it called? You got the bottle over there? Can anybody pronounce that thing?
I don't know.
Get Troy.
I know it is a product. That one is a product of Belgium.
Yes, it did say that.
It did say that on it. Here, let me take another drink here. What is it, Daniela?
Reinert.
Here, you say it.
It's called Reinert Wild Ale.
No, Reinert Wild Ale. Oh, it says it's a Flemish Wild Ale, which is a lambic, right? Okay. Reinert Flemish Wild Ale. It's 9% alcohol by volume. It's in one of those little stubby bottles with a
pregnant neck.
Yeah, the pregnant, fat-looking neck on it.
Like you. You'll look at it in a few months.
Yeah, give me some time. It's bottle conditioned. says right here, which we're going to talk about in our Carbonation too, I assume. And, yep, it's a product of Belgium. So there you go. The legendary Cunning Fox Reinert Flemish Wild Ale. True to form. It's got some citrusy stuff happening in there. It's definitely a little bit sour.
And
although I had expected that a lambic would be more of a thick tasting beer, but it's not thick at all. It's actually very light.
It's usually white, bright and good, nice on your tongue, and it's got a lot of back flavor to it.
Yes, you're right.
Takes a long time to make one of these.
A lot of wheat.
It's even got a mouthfeel like a champagne too, because of all the carbonation and because of how light it is, and it's also dry. So to me, it's got a mouthfeel like a champagne.
Yep. The wild yeast and the bacteria will make it really dry. It'll ferment it way down.
Yeah, I mean it dries right up off your tongue. As soon as you take a swallow, it vanishes. Yeah. The flavor sticks around.
Yeah.
But the dry, it really just sort of evaporates.
I mean, it's kind of like dirty socks, but you got to appreciate that.
Well, it's like
history.
It's history.
Maybe dirty socks after you walked through a lemon field or something because of that citrusy
the
thing.
heather field.
Put some lemon in it.
It's good.
It's good.
I like it. All right, so try that one out if you guys want. We're going to do another one at the end of the show, although, we're going to have to put that back in the fridge. I think it's been popped.
Might as well just do it now.
Want to do it now? Yeah, because it's going to go flat, isn't it? All right, we'll try one more. Go. You can fill them up first. I'll finish mine. This one is called like Lucifer, right?
It's a fairly famous one.
Is it really?
Yeah, you can find it around.
Also a Belgian, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So Lucifer, which also Roger gave to me. He gave me like 7 beers.
Who's Lucifer?
The devil man.
He's my dad.
Beelzebub.
That's my pops. Oh. Just kidding. For any of those of you who are in the Bible Belt, I'm actually a really nice Christian kid. Okay.
Same color.
Same color. It's another light blonde. It looks like a Pilsner to me.
Really clear.
Although I'm assuming it doesn't taste like it.
No.
I gotta finish. I can't just pound this one. It's too sour.
Yeah, it's sour.
Just pound it.
Oh, let that out.
Don't make
Feel
me
better?
come over there.
Okay, I pounded it.
Oh, bad idea, man. What do you know? Actually, your face right now this looks
like hers.
Yeah. Funky.
It has a, you know what? I'll tell you what the alcohol taste is in that. It's a lot like gin. It has, and maybe that's the dry alcohol thing happening, but the alcohol flavor, if you can just sort of isolate that you're tasting, is very much like a gin and tonic type of flavor.
This beer is pretty good. The next one.
Okay. So the Lucifer, again, very carbonated, although smaller bubbles than the other one.
Yep.
It looks much like a Pilsner, has a great head, but not as thick as the last head. It's a lot thinner.
It tastes a little old, a little cardboardy.
Does it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Probably is. It smells better already. I haven't tasted it, but just the smell to me smells better.
I don't get a lot of smell out of it.
Maybe that's why it's better than the other one. It just doesn't taste like,
probably
like socks.
Smelling the previous one too.
Could be, because I just burped. My bad.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Now,
it's not bad.
8%, this one will creep up on you quick.
It's what's the metallic thing happening? You getting that? Yeah. Definitely a metallic flavor in there. Which that can't be a true to style flavor.
It's old.
Just that it's old.
Yep.
So does the glass bottle give off a metallic flavor when it's really old?
Things break down and they turn into other things.
Okay. Oh, there you
go. There's a lot of metabolism and a lot of reactions that go on in there. Beer goes in stages.
Yeah.
And some are supposed to be in a later stage. I've had better ones of Lucifer.
Oh, you have? But the same style as that one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's just newer. And how long has Roger had this thing?
Yeah, who knows? It's, the thing is that it's not bad because
it's not bad at all.
If you take your first taste, which does not have the metallic flavor to it, it's actually really smooth and nice. Mm-hmm. But it's as soon as you swallow that metallic flavor then kind of fills up the back of your mouth.
It does have a good maltiness up front.
All right, so this one's Lucifer. I'd recommend definitely giving this one a try if you can find one that's not old.
You can find it on tap, which I have.
Oh, you have?
Where?
Where have you found that on tap?
I've had it on tap at Tornado.
Okay. Brew pub and brewery, right?
Yeah. It's just a bar.
Just a bar. Okay.
It's like a biker bar in San Francisco, but they've got just a big 2-page list of Belgians that they got to go down to the basement to get.
Gotcha. They let you in there? Did you dress up in your biker stuff?
No.
No, it's not like that. Great sausage place next door, though.
Is that right?
No, but
it's in the Castro then?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, actually. No. It's close. It's in near the Haight.
Only Daniela got my sausage joke.
But I did. There's a guy outside playing banjo. With his hat out, so I gave him $2 and so I could play his banjo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sweet.
He's like, I just want money to play. How about
Can I play your banjo? Here's $2.
Cool. And so you rocked out for a little while?
Yeah.
You're supposed to bring in your banjo, or don't forget.
All right.
Yeah. I want a little rocking out. Yeah. I want to record it. I want to write like a mid-show interlude or something that's on banjo, you know?
Are you going to sing?
Some background.
No.
Come on.
But I can't,
write a Brewing Network song.
I can't top the homebrew. Yeah, Pale is a friend of mine, so I don't even want to try.
Okay.
Okay, so there you go.
Are we taking a break here soon? Because
you want to refill? Take a break and then we'll start the discussion.
I'm out of beer.
All right, you want to do that?
Yeah.
I suppose I can do that. Okay. Excuse me, guys. We're going to take a really quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to start a carbonation discussion. We're going to try to power through it. Yeah. I think I just started our carbonation discussion.
Let's just go.
We'll be right back. Get your questions ready. You can go to the chat room on our homepage, log in as a guest, or call 888-401-BEER.
You're listening to a bunch of guys talk about beer. The Brewcasters
on the Brewing Network.
Well, that was a good tasting of Belgians because they were all really high in alcohol content.
I can't see my hands.
Yeah, but that has to do with your sunstroke and your beer out on the boat.
Yeah, that
more than the Belgians.
Where'd you go?
But he's young. He's got plenty of brain cells.
Oh yeah, he's fine.
I'm doing okay.
And he's not going to be a doctor or anything. Let's face it.
No.
He's all right.
I'm involved with beer.
Me too.
Doc, were you homebrewing before you finished med school?
No, I was just partying hardy.
I was going to say, because
he's still partying hardy.
I don't know that you would have graduated if you were homebrewing. By
I was. There's times there I was wondering if I was going to graduate out with my friends.
I hope that
my best experience with Dr. Scott was in Colorado at the GABF about 3 years ago.
Yeah,
I think he dropped about $200 on me for striptease.
Is that right?
We went upstairs to the upstairs room, and he looked like deer caught in the headlight. So I needed to warm him up a little bit.
I was 21. I was like.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good friend right there.
Yeah. We've been through a lot together.
Wow, really? I hope that none of your patients are listening, Doc. When you say, I'm really surprised I even graduated. Yeah, okay, see you next week. Actually, we're going to send Daniela over to you, so...
Cool.
How you feeling about that now? Come on, Daniela. You guys can have a beer beforehand.
Yeah.
John's showing his tooth action.
He did that.
Good work?
Oh my God.
Good work to it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, and he fixed a root canal I had done that got infected, and then he fixed it and plugged the hole and gave
made it look pretty.
Made it look pretty. It's all white. It was discolored as dying.
Did you guys drink together before he did it?
No, that was about 8 in the morning when I had it done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Give me when I'm fresh.
At 7. That's what I'm drinking. Not at 8. Roger actually asked me the other day when we were at Drake's. He goes, is Dr. Scott really a doctor? And I said, oh yeah. Actually, he's totally a doctor. Yeah. He's our in-house doctor. Every good radio show's got to have an in-house doctor. I'm convinced of that. Yeah. You know, or at
makes
least
good radio.
It does make good radio. Because there's just something about it. Like, even if you were drunk all the way through med school, Doc, there's a certain credibility that comes along that whatever you say, if I ask you a question and you answer it, I'm going to go, cool. Okay. Like, I'm not really going to argue about it. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, I'm a communication major, and well, that just pretty much means I'm dumb.
I'm a dropout.
So there's no reason to question your authority. Yeah. You gotta have a doctor.
I dropped out of college for beer.
You did, didn't you?
I did.
You got the job at B3.
And I dropped out and I said, screw it.
Hey.
I'll work at B3.
Here's a success story for you.
I picked and packed all your orders out there, homebrewers.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, you want to be a brewer one day, though, too. Like, well, I mean, you're a brewer now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. You wouldn't mind owning a brewery.
Sure.
Yeah.
Brew house, pub house.
So it could turn out to be the best decision you ever made.
That's true.
Or the worst. Talk to us again in a year.
Yeah. Or next month with my waist.
We'll check that waistline.
Yeah. All right.
And it's like, no. It's over.
Well, college wasn't going to make you any slimmer.
No.
So I did make me slimmer. Actually, it did because I was so poor.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to eat.
Ramen and
That's
beer.
why I drink. Yeah, Jello and mac and cheese.
Although the Jell-O was also filled with vodka.
Yeah. But that's why I drank so much Schaefer, because I was so damn poor.
Yeah.
The one beer to have.
I was
more than riches.
I was natural light myself, which is just as bad, if not worse.
I think the worst story I had was my roommate and I were just cramming for finals, and we had eaten all the Jell-O, we'd eaten all the mac and cheese. There's nothing left in the house. Yeah. We went up to the top shelf, and there's one can of clam chowder, but we didn't have any milk to make it with, so we made it with water. And it's just not the same when you're looking at the little dudes in your bowl.
Yeah, it's not the same. What we used to do was, you could get mac and cheese for like 13 cents a box, and if it was on sale, you'd get like 10 boxes. Yeah. So we'd eat it for about 10 days straight. But in order to
turn orange,
in order to change the scenery, we would just add different frozen vegetables to it. Right. Like you could put peas in there or corn or what, just to make it different. Sometimes we could afford like a pound of bacon. We'd chop up some bacon and throw that in the mac and cheese.
Sounds good, actually.
Yeah, we lived for a long, long time on mac and cheese. Awesome. Which just goes to show that you can. So I don't want to hear you complaining about being poor out there, all right? Buy some mac and cheese and some peas.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. All right, why don't we get on to the carbonation talk so we can answer some questions and spread some knowledge. Okay. Here's the deal. There's a couple of ways to carbonate your beer, as most of you probably know. Some of you may not have tried all of them. I don't think I have. I started out... I guess you'd call it bottle conditioning, right? Because I was adding the corn sugar and bottling all my beer and waiting for carbonation. And with me, it turned out that I was waiting with my fingers crossed for carbonation. Because
hit or miss.
My first batch I ever brewed turned out great. One of the best batches of beer I ever brewed, actually. It was great. It was an IPA. Just bought a kit from B3. And it carbonated perfect. It was really nice. My second batch in ESB... never carbonated. Not one bit.
We tried to fix that
Nothing.
too.
We tried. Yeah. Even that's the one that I talked to you about too, Doc. And actually, there was two batches, and you told me to raise the temperature. Yeah. It worked on one. It didn't work on the other. We'll get into those details in a second. Yeah. And then my third batch was fine. My fourth batch was the gusher. So, which is when, it's so overcarbonated, fermentation probably wasn't done, or I had a wild yeast or something happening there.
Yeah.
And it actually...
Or you were drinking when you're putting the sugar in there.
Which is most likely the case. So,
a cup,
a gusher, you pop the top and the thing just never stops foaming. It just...
you put your mouth on it right away, right?
Oh, yeah. What's happening? And then...
Pour it into a pitcher.
Oh, the gas that'll give you? Yeah. Oh, man, trying to drink a gusher?
No, don't do that, man.
I drank all of them. What are you talking about?
I know.
The ones I didn't drink or the ones that exploded? Horrible. But what I would do was take them, put them in the sink, pop the top, and let them sit there and gush for an hour and a half. And then they were right down to the perfect carbonation level, and I'd drink them.
Did you take a final gravity reading?
What's that?
Oh. Yeah. It's been 3 days. It must be ready.
Yeah, I don't...
That plays a huge role in
You're right.
carbonation of your beer.
And let's get into talking about that, because I do actually... often forget to take my final gravity, and that was probably one of the batches that I did. It sat for a long time. It was actually in the fermenter for 2.5 weeks, so I just went by the assumption that it was done. But yeah, you would think, and that's what I thought.
2 weeks for ales is usually good enough.
And I didn't do a gravity reading, but which is why Dr. Scott says it's probably a bacteria or something that got in there and producing some more carbonation. Okay, so that's one of the ways you can do it, which we're going to talk about is bottle conditioning, and then obviously the other way is forced carbonation, right? And am I missing anything? Any mysterious way to carbonate?
There's a carbonation lid, which is forced carbonating, but you do it in like 1 day.
Still forced carbonation. Okay.
No, you let the yeast do it, or you do it for them.
Right. Okay, I like to start with the primitive things, because I'm sort of a primitive guy. So why don't we go right to bottle conditioning? And there are cases, you can buy a lot of commercial beers that'll actually advertise that they're bottle conditioned. One of the Belgians we just had.
Mostly Belgians are.
They are bottle conditioned?
Traditionally.
A lot of them you can only get in a bottle.
Yeah. Okay. So, for some of them it's really a part of the process. For other home brewers it's just an inexpensive way to carbonate. Right. So, let's start with that, Doc.
Okay.
Basically, the principle behind bottle conditioning is that before you ever carbonate your beer, you bottle it. And before you bottle it, you add corn sugar, or are there other sugar substances?
There's ways to do it. You can have new beer, fresh wort you put in there, put it high Kreuzen. It's not finished beer. You can put that in there. Whatever has some sugar to feed the yeast again.
Okay, so if there's sugar left, you're saying?
Sometimes you can stop the fermentation at a certain point, cap it, and then go with that way, or ferment it all the way out, have another wort going, and that's not all the way done. Put that in there.
Oh, all right.
And Papazian does that.
Or add sugar into it.
Okay.
Now, if you're Reinheitsgebot, you're going to need to put wort.
You got to do the wort. What's the advantage of doing of putting a wort in there instead of
a corn sugar? Well, it's a Reinheitsgebot. You can't put sugar in there.
Okay.
Because that's not part of the four things.
I think purity too would probably be more beneficial to the beer too.
Well, yeah, but you got to take gravities, and you're going to, if you're not really right on with your measurements, you're going to get gushers.
Yeah. Now, are you striving to create a wort then that's identical to the wort that you first created?
From your boil.
It's the same wort. You just save
some. You usually have another beer.
Or, brew the same day that you bottle, I guess.
Yeah. Or the day before.
So the flavor profile of the wort doesn't matter then?
No, it does.
It does matter.
Right.
So then you have to brew the same beer. Okay. Or you don't want to save the wort.
If you want to keep the same.
Some people will actually save the wort and they'll put it in the refrigerator and then they'll reuse it.
And then you can use it again because it's got sugar in it, unfermented sugar, which the yeast will use again. Once you cap it, it won't volatilize off, so it reabsorbs back into the liquid and carbonates.
And taking that wort and refrigerating it, if you save it, the temperature of the fridge is going to keep that bacteria down, right? Because it's just
as long as
yes and no, though.
Yes.
I mean, temperature. I had a Doppelbock loss at 40 degrees. Funky. I had a wild yeast and it went dry, and it was infected. I had to throw it out.
It slows it down, but as long as the inside of wherever the vessel is clean. You're good. But again, what Jamil said, you're not sterilizing, you're sanitizing.
Yeah.
So if you still got a few of them in there and you knock the temperature way down, you're probably okay.
All right.
You're probably better off starting over again and doing something fresh if you're going to go that way. The easiest way is the easy way to measure how much carbonation you're going to have is to use corn sugar.
Okay.
Or cane sugar or whatever else you want to
put.
That's kind of the downside of corn sugar, too. You can't actually control the carbonation level in your beer.
You can't.
No.
Right.
So it's a hit or miss. You could have an overcarbonated beer.
Undercarbonated.
Or undercarbonated beer.
Yeah.
It depends.
It depends on the yeast and how much they're going to ferment more or they're going to poop out because of the alcohol content. It's not it's part of it is measuring how much sugar you put in there because you're putting a set amount of sugar in there. But what John's saying is H yeast is going to be a little bit different. And if it ferments a lot, you're going to get high carbonation. If it ferments just a little and it poops out for a lot of reasons, maybe because of the alcohol content, and then drops, or it's a highly flocculent yeast, and it drops out, it'll leave it, and it won't be fermented.
Okay.
And you won't have a carbonated beer. So there's a lot of reasons for that.
What about temperature, though? I mean, as far as bottle conditioning, what temperature ideally? Because I fixed a customer's problem once. He had it at like 70 degrees. Hey, it's been 3 weeks, no carbonation. I'm like, look, put a blanket around it, put it out in this weather that we have right now, 95.
Yeah.
In 4 days, he had carbonation in his beer.
Right.
4 or 5 days.
Okay. Yeast they don't like above 90, 95, but they're really happy at about 80, 85.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But they throw off a lot of funky flavors. But for as much as the little amount of sugar that you put in there, you're not going to get those off flavors very much. But you wouldn't want to ferment your base beer at 85.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're happy.
Yeah.
Lager yeast love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they really throw off a lot of funky stuff, and you don't really want to do that.
Okay. Now, I've read a lot of things about people saying that they bottle condition and have never had a problem with it. It works for them all the time. And I'm assuming that commercial breweries who bottle condition have mastered this sort of thing too. So, is there a process that we can describe to help home brewers that is the best way to ensure that your bottle conditioning is going to give you proper carbonation?
No.
There's not.
No.
It's still going to be hit or miss?
No, you get the guys that are out there that are very good at it. They know their own beer, they know their own system, they know their own yeast, and they've gotten just a good feel for it. The guys that are just continuously doing it right every time.
Right.
Maybe they're not trying, maybe they just got a good second feel for it.
Okay.
And they make some really nice beers, and it's pretty consistent.
Okay. So it's not formulaic, you're saying? There's no formula for... I mean, I know there's a formula for how much, sugar you're supposed to add per... amount of beer.
But there's a lot of other variables in there. That's the biggest one, is that.
You could add yeast to it, too.
It really doesn't matter the temperature-wise. It's whatever the yeast you're using and what it's going to do.
Right.
Okay.
If you got a highly flocculent yeast that isn't very alcohol tolerant, it's not going to give you everything that the high temperature, high alcohol guy is going to do.
Okay. How about this? Aside from if you have a carbonation failure like I had, aside from trying to raise the temperature, is there another thing you can possibly do to save the beer?
I would add like a dry yeast.
But one was in the bottle already.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. So you got all your beer bottled. You've tried to raise the temperature. Is it a lost cause, or is there something else?
Some guys have actually poured it all out back into like a bottling bucket.
Okay.
And pitched some more yeast, and then bottle it back up again.
Okay.
To get a secondary fermentation in the bottle.
But you're going to get a lot of oxidation.
Okay.
But that secondary fermentation in the bottle will uptake that oxygen though. But you might get aeration. So you get like a
aeration, and right away it won't matter, but the beer won't last as long.
But you can't just add yeast, right? You got to add a fermentable again too, don't you?
No, there's still sugar in beer. If you know your gravity, your final gravity.
Okay,
that would help.
Well, especially a lot of these beers, they don't use the same yeast they ferment with that they carbonate with.
Okay,
they'll use a lot of times they'll ferment with an ale yeast. They'll strip that out of there, filter it or whatever, and then they'll put in a lager yeast because it's more temperature tolerant and it's cleaner. So some of these bottles that you try to culture from, you're not going to get the fermenting yeast out of it. Some of them, they do both. There's a couple of websites that tell you which bottles do and which bottles don't. So if you're going to culture and do that one. But you could try changing your yeast, repitching before you go into it, especially in cold winter kind of thing. Your house is kind of cold. Repitch with a lager yeast.
Okay.
And it'll stay in suspension longer, and it won't mind the cooler temperature, and you'll still get it carbonated.
Okay. I got a question about bottle conditioning here for a Saison ale. When I bottle condition, it's from the chat room. When I bottle condition my Saison after a long secondary, I want a very high carbonation level, appropriate to the style. I also want to add some fresh yeast, and the yeast he's doing is WLP 565. He wants to do that at bottling. How much priming sugar and yeast should I add at bottling for 5 gallons? And just as an added piece of info, he's going to champagne bottles to do so.
Okay. I don't bottle condition at all.
Okay.
I got several reasons for that. But with the Saison, what Chris White told me was the Saison yeast won't get you dry enough. And you want to pitch something else in there that will help dry it out that's more tolerant.
Okay.
Even just a California ale, he says it's fine. Most of it's very neutral.
Okay.
And it'll help dry it out. Don't put it in there at the end. Put it in about 2/3.
Is the 565 a Saison yeast? Do you know, John?
It's a Belgian. I think it's a Saison.
It's a Saison.
Belgian
okay.
If you want a lot of carbonation in 5 gallons, it's a cup and 3/4.
Okay.
It comes to mind. Don't quote me on that. Look it up.
Okay.
But, that'll probably get you a lot of carbonation, but yeah, pitch a different yeast too.
Okay. So, if, for example, what was I doing for, I don't even remember, a 1/4 ounce for
you were doing 4 ounces for 5 gallons.
Okay, 4 ounces
boiled.
for 5 gallons.
Yeah.
So, if
corn sugar.
So you're going to want to do a lot more than that if you want a lot of carbonation like in a Saison.
I think as a cup or a cup and 1/4 is a little average for
cup of corn sugar.
Cup of corn sugar, cup and 1/4.
Okay.
If we're highly carbonated, maybe a cup and 3/4. I've seen those in recipes.
Yeah. Okay.
Although I haven't tried it again, look it up.
Okay.
Just use that as a benchmark. But
okay. And by the way, it's 888-401-BEER if you have any questions, or you can go to the chat room.
We should talk about this with Vinny when he comes in there in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because he's got a damnation that he bottle conditions.
Okay.
A Belgian blonde ale.
Yeah,
right?
I love getting
awesome.
Vinny talking about Belgium.
But he uses actually champagne yeast for all his conditioning.
Okay.
No sugar, but he uses champagne yeast because he probably stops the fermentation at a certain gravity.
Yeah.
And then
how do you stop fermentation?
You could chill it down.
Chill it.
Yeah.
Okay.
40
they used to go to sleep at a certain point. Most ales will go to sleep in the low 60s.
So it's not that you're transferring it off
No.
You're just cooling it
No,
down.
because the yeast is in suspension, but mostly just, cool it down below fermentation temperatures for an ale.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you got to take a gravity read and pick where you want it. That's a trial and error.
Okay.
And there's going to be residual sugar left in it, and then the champagne yeast will dry it out quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably going for that for a Belgian style beer.
Right.
Right.
And then Vinny makes
pale ale.
killer Belgians. I've had a few of his. That
I'm hoping he's bringing some
from
in.
the shell.
He will.
You're going to have to
definitely.
double call him. And
Probably
say,
bring in some of his oak beers.
Well, the two things that people always want to talk to Vinny about are how much hops can he get in a beer?
Yeah.
And his Belgians.
Right.
And
Okay.
lately he told me it's just mostly everyone wants to talk about the hop thing. And I told him, no, I want him to come and talk to us about the Belgians. He just lit up. He just, well,
He'll talk to you.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that.
He's got some cool little things to do with it and things you want to try, little experiments. It's great.
Okay. That's probably going to be a long show, I'm guessing. That's in August, right?
Yeah, August 14th, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, why don't we move on to a little more area of your guys' expertise then and get into forced carbonation, because bottle conditioning is very basic. You're just going to need to perfect your method there and find the best way to
know
get
your beer.
Know your beer. If you're doing it and you're consistent at it, because you know your beer, you know your system and everything else, you can get killer beers.
Okay. Sure.
And there's always the argument that you get a finer carbonation out of the bottled conditioned beers, and Regan and I go round and round about that one.
Okay. So let's talk forced carbonation then, and then get into sort of maybe carbonation to style. Because certain styles are requiring carbonation. Okay. Actually, Troy, when I was on the phone with him earlier, off the air, he had a question about English ales and their carbonation levels, which I think is a good question. Maybe he wants to call back in, or I can just bring it through. But forced carbonation now is using CO2 pressure actually to get carbonation in your beer. If I were to ask you, Doc, what takes place in order to to turn CO2 into something that stays in your beer and actually comes flowing up from the bottom of your beer, which to me is fascinating. Am I getting into a really difficult question here, or can you tell me
let's just keep it simple.
Okay.
Let's just say with proper temperature and pressure, you will get the CO2 to dissolve into the liquid.
It's got to be cold, though.
The colder it is, the easier it is.
Right.
But you can go warm, you just need more pressure. So it's a variant, and they're inversely proportional, pressure and temperature.
Okay. Can't warmer temperatures create off flavors, though? Like, you have a gas, a liquid going in, no?
Not really, no. That's not really what we're talking about here.
Okay.
You're looking at putting volumes of CO2 into solution.
Okay.
You can do it with lots of pressure and regular temperature, or you can lower the temperature. The CO2 wants to dissolve easier in a cold liquid.
Okay.
Also, warm beer will go flat a lot faster than a cold beer will.
Okay.
Because it wants to come out of solution that much easier. So the one thing I like about doing forced carbonation, besides the fact that I don't get so much sludge in the bottom, and is that I can dial in exactly how much carbonation I want. Carbonation also has a flavor profile to it. If I get a beer and it's a little too sweet, it just kind of lays on your palate, you can crank up the carbon dioxide a little bit, and it'll help crisp up that flavor profile.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've had that.
And also, if you're going to be doing any kind of competitions, carbonation plays a lot of role in the mouthfeel, the flavor profile, and everything. And to style, which is what competition's all about. If you have a great beer, if it's not to style, it's not gonna do great. Although if you have a great beer that's to style, two things, that's what you're gonna win with. So you can dial it in with temperature and pressure.
Okay.
And I was talking to John earlier yesterday about carbonating beers, and my thought on that one, if I'm going to have a competition beer, I over-carbonate it just slightly.
Okay.
It goes into the glass. The judges like to swirl it around. Usually his glass is warm.
Yeah.
A lot of the carbonation comes off.
Okay.
Well, he smells it, and that's great because that's what he wants to get.
Yeah.
By the time he's drinking it, it's at the good carbonation level.
That's a good idea.
Rather than starting where you are and then losing it, and then you got a flatter beer.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
Is the only thing that keeps carbonation in a beer counter pressure?
Yes.
It is. It's just counter pressure. It's not that that CO2 releases because now there's oxygen exposed. It's nothing else but counter pressure.
Right. Okay. It's equilibrium in the headspace.
Totally. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. I got a question here. Does it matter if you force carbonate at the PSI you're shooting for or extra high for quicker carbonation? I read you should carbonate at the level you're shooting for, but I don't know why.
I would say go by taste. Taste your beer and keep it on CO2 for long-term time, 2-3 weeks under forced carbonation. And once you get a flavor that you like, lower it to serving pressure like 4 to 6 pounds, and then bottle like 2 to 3 days afterwards.
Okay.
It's fresh, you got the carbonation level you like, and then you can bottle it and then preserve it and then drink away.
Okay. But it's not affecting the flavor of the beer, whether you're cranking it to 30 for 4 days?
It stresses it. You'll get more dropout, probably more pressure on the beer.
Okay.
But you're speeding up the process, you're saving time.
What you're doing by increasing the pressure is speeding up the process.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I like to do.
I'm
always doing it.
I do it. I usually crank it up and shake it. Get it in there. The problem with doing it with hyper pressure is you could overcarbonate it. Then you got to crank it down every couple of days. You got to vent it and let it come down. On the other side, if you really want to do it right, put it at the temperature and pressure, and it's going to take a week and a half to get it where it's supposed to be. If you don't want to do that, you can make a combination of both. You know, if it's supposed to be at 12 pounds, put it at 20, shake it to a point where it's not overcarbonated, put it back down to 12 pounds, leave it for a few days, maybe a week at the most, and it will be where it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The big danger is just overcarbonating when you're doing it that way, and you can bring it back that way.
Okay.
Take the gas off and
you take the gas off. You got to vent it, twice a day or so, and it will equalize once you pull the head pressure off, and it'll come back down.
Crotch Rot posted in there after that question that he gets better heads when he carbonates slower.
You said head.
Yeah, by the way, any advice that gets you better head, I'm willing to take, Crotch Rod. He gets better head when he carbonates slower and doesn't really know why. Just curious if that might be actually part of the process, or maybe it's coincidence.
I'm going with coincidence. Mostly the head retention and stuff has to do with the amount of protein that's in the beer.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So to me, if you're attentive, right, and you're willing to really watch your beer and get your carbonation level right, I'm not really seeing a reason to slow carbonate. I mean, I know that you do, John, but which I'd like to hear. But Dr. Scott, you just said really the only factor is overcarbonation. So,
right.
So if you can stop it at the right time, you get it done faster.
Well, if you're going to brew, you're going to take care of your beer. So if you're going to do 30 pounds, why not? If you want to have beer,
I'll do 30
days.
pounds, and shaking it actually will make it go into solution faster.
Yeah.
One trick I use
shaking it for 5 minutes. What are we talking here?
Yeah. One thing I do is I'll put the gas on the dip tube on the gas on the beer outside with the black one.
Yeah.
So it bubbles up through the solution, and then I shake it.
What's your pressure at?
About 30.
Yeah. Okay. But that takes like 5 minutes, and you're
you got to shake. You got to shake it, and until you stop hearing the bubbles coming up.
Okay.
And then you got to let it sit for a couple of days. If you start to tap it right off of that, it's not going to be stable and it's going to come out really fast.
Okay. So you're putting it onto the dip side, to the outside.
Put it on the dip side and I shake it
vigorously?
Yes.
Really? You're just shaking
you
that
watch.
thing up.
The more you shake it, that regulator turns on and the gas goes in because you're actually splashing it inside the keg and creating more surface area for it to dissolve into the solution.
Okay. And then when you let it sit for a couple of days, are you still leaving it at 30?
No. That's when I crank it back down to where it should be by the chart.
Yeah.
Usually about 12 pounds at 38 or something.
Okay. Oh.
Be careful.
Yes.
Why? What's the danger?
That's a lot of pressure.
Keg exploding?
No, kegs take 130 pounds. Exactly. So, no, that's not what it is. But shake it around for a while till it doesn't, you won't get it all in there, so you probably won't overcarbonate. You're going to get tired before you shake it. And you'll stop and then crank it back down to, 10, 12 pounds or whatever the temperature. Get a chart.
Okay.
I mostly tell customers 5 days, 15 pounds of pressure, 40 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay.
12 pounds, 7 days, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. If you can not touch your beer and let it do its thing for about a week,
and
you come back to it and lower your pressure to serving, like 4 to 6 pounds of pressure, you're pretty much good.
It's always going to be
depending
just right.
All styles.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can tweak it from there if you want more, but
you have to balance your system. Too, because if you're serving at 4 pounds, you got a flat beer in a few days.
Yeah.
If you can keep it up to 12. Crank it, let it down to 4, pour a few beers and crank it back up. That's a pain in the ass.
Plus, the more you drink, you're going to want to creep up your pressure to preserve that carbonation level because you have a certain amount of head space that you're going to fill with pressure.
It's whatever pressure's in the tank.
Right.
Gotcha.
You can balance your system by the length of your beer line. And the longer the beer line, the more resistance it has. Ideally, what you want to have is your carbonating pressure. Let's talk 12 pounds. At whatever volumes you want, 12 pounds. That's what you should be having it in your kegerator at, 12 pounds.
Okay.
But you need enough resistance in the line to be just below 12 pounds, maybe 11 and a half. So when you pour it, you got about a half a pound at the faucet that's going to pour a beer, and it won't foam.
Okay.
You can do the math all you want but the different beer lines are a little bit different on their resistance.
Okay.
You really need to do the hit and miss thing, cut your beer line shorter, make it longer kind of thing.
It's like 5 to 8 feet.
Right.
For the beverage I would recommend.
I've got
longer is better, you're saying.
Well, yeah. Well, one of my
nowhere near
smaller.
One of my lines I have in my kegerators for high carbonated beers.
Uh-huh.
I have a double regulator. It goes into that keg. Maybe that one's at 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I have about 12 feet of beer line, up to the faucet because I want it to come out slower and not foam all over the place.
Is that a lighter beer or a heavier beer?
It's usually one of my Belgians.
Okay.
Or wheat beer.
Right.
Depends on whatever I want. If I want 3.1 volumes in that thing, I can't be pouring it out of a regular faucet. It's going to come out really fast at 20 pounds. It's all be foam.
Gotcha.
Right. But that's the carbonation on that keg, though, is at 20 pounds.
You have to because it's got to be equilibrium. I want to keep 3.2 in that one.
Right.
Where the other ones I want 2.5.
Right.
Well, I only need a shorter line.
Okay.
To come up to the faucet.
But that's why you have a longer line to preserve that.
Yeah.
Plus be able to
the longer line is more resistant, so you lose PSI in the longer line.
Okay.
And there's places on websites you can find what, a 3/8 inch tubing does per foot, how much pressure drop you get.
Yeah.
Also, if there's a height difference, if your kegerator's in the basement and your bar's on the first floor, that's going to be a big difference too.
Right.
Plus if it's not cool.
Yeah.
And it's hot.
Yeah. Obviously, it's going to give you that.
My kegerator's in the garage. My garage temperature goes up and down, and it's an older refrigerator, so that goes up and down too.
Okay.
So there's a lot to play with. It's got to be the same temperature and pressure. Think temperature and pressure, those two things.
Okay. A question from the chat room is, if you carbonate at 12 pounds and then save it at 4 pounds, doesn't that allow the remaining 8 pounds to dissipate from the beer, leaving it flat?
Yes.
Yeah?
Exactly.
So that's why you're saying leave it serving at 12 pounds.
Yeah. Or you can just vent and repressurize every time you pour.
Right.
That's, I used to do that when I first started too.
Yeah.
It's like I pour it at 12 pounds. If you're rushing out of there, I get a glass full of foam.
Yeah.
Or I would reach in, vent the keg down to about 4 pounds, then pour a nice beer at dinner, nice beer after dinner, and then before I went to bed, I'd crank it back up to 12 pounds.
I do that with my setup too, actually.
And
I'll go ahead and vent it.
you can do that, pain in the ass, or you can just lengthen the line from your keg to the faucet.
Okay.
And you can leave it at that pressure.
Right. And a lot of times the first beer is going to be a little foamy, so don't get too egged out about that one.
Right.
Plus it tastes funky.
Nah, well, because I usually pour half a glass, throw it away.
Yeah.
Because what's in the line isn't really pressurized, and it's a little flat, so I'll pour half a glass, and then I pour my beer.
Right.
Just because I don't like the stuff that's been in the line.
Yeah. Beer snob.
Hey,
I'm the same way.
I made it. I can throw it away.
Yeah. I'll dump it too, the first half glass.
Yeah.
It's true.
The first half glass out of 12.
Exactly. Okay. Why don't we talk about a couple styles here, just to bring it up. The question I got from Troy over the break, he just was interested because he just got back from London. A lot of those cask-conditioned ales are a lot flatter than our ales out here. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with, one, the cask, or just the style that they're going for, whereas ales in England are typically, if it's a true English ale, just a less carbonated beer.
Well, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, okay.
And that's part of it. But a lot of English beers, you want to taste more malty stuff, so the carbonation's low. And then it turns into a style.
Yeah.
And part of it was because they couldn't pressurize the cask. It's wood. And you got, I don't remember, 3-4 pounds maybe.
Do they serve it with air?
It's a hand pump. It's a vacuum.
If it's a cask, it's a hand pump. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder how long that beer will actually last.
Well,
the air exposure.
Because the air goes in, and it's pretty much they tap it. A lot of times, a lot of beer pubs they'll have a tap day, Thursday.
Yeah.
And they hope it's gone by Friday, Saturday.
Right.
It won't last much longer.
Right.
Once the air gets in there, it will stale it.
Yeah. That's a good point. When I was just, buying kegs for barbecues or whatever else, going out to the lake and hanging out with
kegs
friends.
Kegs what?
Sierra Nevada, usually, is when I was trying to get craft beer. Sometimes I get Lagunitas, whatever I could get. But it was before I was a brewer. And occasionally the beer would warm overnight, not hot, but we wouldn't ice it down again until we woke up from our stupor, and then we'd ice it down again. But it would invariably be much worse the next day. And I always thought it was solely due to the temperature change. But I've since realized it was because
the hand pump?
It was the hand pump.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you don't want to oxygenate your beer.
Pressurize air.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's how we were getting a great pour out of it for the first night. It was always great because the oxygen's not going to change it in the first 4 hours. But by the next day, after pumping oxygen into the thing all night long,
right. Well, it
was bad.
Partial pressures of gas too. CO2 comes out, but it's still the head space, and you're going to get oxygen forced back into it.
Yeah. So it's part of the thing where where ignorance is bliss, because now that I know, I can never get a keg and just have them hand me that silly hand pump thing.
Yeah,
I'm like, where's my CO2 setup?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I want good beer, and I don't want to ruin good beer.
No.
I'll be thinking it's such a waste if I ruin it.
My friend wanted a keg set up to take with him, so we got him one of those ones that fit on the top of the keg with the hand pump. But I also set up a CO2 thing, so we just kind of disconnected the whole hand pump thing. And so I taught him how to use it, and he kept the CO2 on that one. But all these big bubbles would come up, and they just pumping that thing, and they're coming out. They just think they're doing a great job on that keg, and it was doing nothing.
Right? It didn't even pump it in. Right?
No, it didn't pump it in.
That's great.
It was just dead. But every one of them come up there and pump.
I've got a cure for the hand pump. You just helped me out solve it.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sankey tap,
Yeah.
CO2 injector on the side, and a little handheld faucet on the top. You can rent that out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Tap your keg, give it a shot of CO2, the beer will be good.
You should
and when they
rent
don't drink
them
it
out.
all, they bring it back. We get to drink it.
Yeah. You should either rent them out or come up with a cost-efficient way to sell them for $5 or something, because they charge you $5 to pick up the hand pump
just
anyway.
rent it, yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you can sell the CO2 setup for $5 or even $8, you just convince them, even if you get up to $10, convince them that their beer is going to be better if they just buy the little setup. It's a disposable setup if you want it to be, and put CO2. I'm telling you, I can't go back to that stupid hand pump because it really ruins the beer. And I didn't know that whole time. Everybody always said, it's the temperature, but it wasn't just
You're
the
just
temperature.
afraid to exercise.
Yeah, I don't want to pump that thing. This question is about the carbonation stone. It says, how long and at what pressure do I need to use?
Stone has nothing to do with how much carbonation you get in there.
It's to oxygenate your wort, right?
No.
Oh, it's actually a carbonation.
But
It's the same stone
Okay,
and
go ahead.
the same principle.
Okay.
Small bubbles will diffuse into the solution faster. Okay, so it's a matter of breaking up the little bubbles more. So the same pressure, same temperature, it will still get you at your volumes of CO2. But it gets you there faster. It dissolves faster.
Okay.
There's a lot of different ways to get them to dissolve faster. One is higher pressure.
Yeah.
The other one's a diffusion stone, and the other one is shaking it.
Okay.
You can do all three if you feel like it. There's a lot of charts out there. I'm looking at one right now.
Yeah.
Just, if you've got a carbonation stone, it'll just get you there faster. So if you want 2.5 volumes of CO2 at whatever temperature you're at, look along the graph, look up, down, crisscross, applesauce, and it'll get you there. Okay. The carbonation stone's cool because it actually will get you there faster.
In a day, really.
It'll get you there in a day because the bubbles are smaller.
Really?
So there's more surface area per bubble.
Yeah.
And molecules of CO2 are about the size of a molecule of water, so they're very small.
Okay.
And when the bubbles are much smaller, there's more contact area with the liquid.
Okay.
So it just goes in faster.
Using the carbonation stone, you start out at a low pressure, 4 pounds.
You don't want to blow it off the end.
Exactly. You don't want to blow off the end. Raise it up maybe 1 to 2 pounds per hour. And once you get up to about a 10 to 12 pound pressure, leave it there overnight.
Where are you putting that stone?
It's actually a keg lid built into your keg.
Or the old style, what I used to do is you have to reach your dirty hand inside your keg and you put it on the gas side tube with a piece of vinyl, and it goes into the bottom.
Okay.
I sanitized my hand a few times, but I just hated doing that. And then they came up with
it
did.
Yeah.
And then they came up with the lid. And it's actually another body connect on top of the lid.
Okay.
And you just hook it onto there. But good thing what John said is don't crank it up to 13, 14 pounds and turn it on.
Yeah.
'Cause you probably blow that stone right off that vinyl tubing. So you can crank it up a little faster than that if you want. When the bubbles stop, when you stop hearing it hiss, crank it up some more.
Okay.
It just has to equalize.
Okay.
You don't want to put 12 pounds into that vinyl tubing, but then you got that thing rattling around the bottom of your keg.
Okay.
Ask me how I know.
You've done it, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about this volumes of carbon dioxide chart here. You have a couple things written down that it looks like soda is generally at 3.5. What's the measurement?
Volumes of CO2 are it's a measure of how much CO2 is dissolved in the liquid. Okay. You don't really got to know where it comes from or what it is. You just got to know the range of what it is. And a 2.0 to 3.0 is a good beer range.
This is in PSI?
No, this is in volumes of CO2.
So is that a parts per million type of thing?
It's volumes of CO2. I think it's milliliters per liter.
Okay.
Something like that. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Don't got to know that.
Gotcha.
Just got to know the chart.
Okay.
You got to know where your beer style falls in.
All right.
Standard pale ale is about 2.5.
Okay.
And that's a good fizziness. High end is going to be your wheat beers, and your Belgian beers are going to be 3.0, maybe a little above. Your stouts, let's not talk about stout. That's nitrogen. So let's talk about cask condition kind of English ale. Okay. That's going to be around a 2.0.
Okay.
You're going to have CO2 in the solution just from your fermenter. It's going to be 1.5 or so, but it's going to be there.
Okay.
You can measure it. It just that much dissolves under normal atmospheric pressures.
Okay.
So just decide where your style, and you can look it up what your style is. But generally, soda that you're going to have, Pepsi and stuff, is about 3.5. That's how fizzy, they're very carbonated.
Yeah.
A real ale, I'm going to go with about 2.0 to 1.8. Something like that. You give it less than that, and it tastes like you're just drinking water.
Yeah.
There's like not any fizziness there.
Okay.
Sierra Nevada, you're going to look at a 2.5, something like that.
Okay.
And you can kind of go off of that.
Okay.
Those are just general beer styles.
Gotcha.
And that'll give you kind of some people, and then you go off of what you like.
Yeah. Very important.
We were talking about, Morgan. He likes his beers undercarbonated.
Yeah, and I would argue with him, be like, your beer's undercarbonated. But he's like, no, I meant to do it. And I'm like,
but it's his beer, and that's what he likes. For me, I like to overcarbonate.
Yeah.
I like to have a little more sparkly on my tongue. I don't like things laying on my tongue.
Yeah. So. I'm the same way.
And so, and you can go overboard, and then it tastes like soda pop.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that either.
Yeah. Right. And you don't want a bunch of gas either. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
you want to drink a lot.
What's the gas? Gas is one thing, but the carbonic acid that it is in the solution is going to have kind of a bitter flavor to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about possibly offsetting some sweets.
Especially like American ales.
Right.
That huge flavor effect.
Yeah, it does have it has a flavor effect. So it not has a mouthfeel, it also has a flavor effect on it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this particular volumes of carbon dioxide chart looks like you can find at homebrew.com.
Okay.
And there, at least it says it at the bottom.
Well, let's look at what's your kegerator at? What's the temperature gauge say on there, if you had one?
42?
42. So let's look at 42 temperature.
All right, I'm looking at it.
And you're going to you want to have about, let's say 2.5. So we got 2.56.
Yeah, I see.
That's a good round number for a pale ale. Maybe a 2.65. You can go either one. That's going to be between 14 and 15 pounds per square inch.
But it doesn't tell you how long to do that for.
No.
All the log
doesn't matter
until it's done. It doesn't, and it won't go over.
If I left it on there for a month, it would never go over.
No, it'll get up to a point and it'll reach equilibrium.
Okay, makes sense.
And it will stay.
I gotcha.
The length thing you can change with a carbonation stone, shaking it, or you can overpressure it for a while. But don't leave it at that.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
So that's an easy chart to use.
It's an easy chart to use. And if you got ProMash, you can plug it in there and it'll tell you exactly
what to put it at.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you tell them what volumes of CO2 you want and what temperature you're at, and it'll tell you how much pressure to put it at.
Okay.
There's a discrepancy, though, I think. Because CO2 in a refrigerator in a cool environment versus outside, how do you think this chart would actually...
It's whatever the temperature of the liquid is.
Yeah, so you got to go by both.
No, the temperature of the CO2 doesn't really matter.
But your regulator reading is going to creep up in a cold environment over time. And
down. Well, it goes
up.
The tank pressure, but the tank pressure...
But your regulator reading goes up over like a week's period. It goes up a few pounds. But if you're outside, it shouldn't.
I'm not following you.
Well, I'm not either.
Well, Chris Graham was talking about this. Gas in a tank In a cold environment, it condenses, I guess.
CO2 is a liquid and gas mixture in the tank.
Right.
But
it can give you a false reading because of that.
Only in the tank pressure.
But you're reading the tank pressure.
I'm not reading. I'm reading the keg pressure or the line pressure. There's 2 dials.
The out of.
That shouldn't change.
Okay.
And if it does, crank it back up to where it should be. Because you want to have that, whatever, 14 to 15, if that's what you're doing, into the corny.
Okay. Because I've had beer read like 12, 14 pounds of pressure, but I set it at 8 or 10.
Okay.
And it'll creep up after a week. I'm like, what's going on? But it's still pouring the same.
Yeah.
So be aware of that, I guess.
And you're reading. Check your temperature.
Yeah.
If the temperature went up, then your pressure's going to go up.
Okay.
So your refrigerator might be like hurting because it's hot out.
Yeah, 40,
and then your
45.
temperature goes up, and then the pressure equilibrium will go up.
Okay.
All right, let's switch topic for a second. I'm gonna give this to you, John, because I think you are the somewhat of an expert on this, and then call it a show.
Okay.
Somebody wants any tips for carbonation levels for filling bottles with a counter pressure bottle filler.
I personally, I carbonate my beer to where I think is a good flavor. A good taste.
Okay.
If I'm happy with how it pours out of my tap on my kegerator, that's when I bottle it.
Okay.
But I'll give a beer anywhere from 2 to 3 months of aging before I even bottle it.
Okay.
Just because it's aged, a lot of dropout is cleared, and I've got a proper carbonation level in there, and then I'm set. And then
are you losing with your counter pressure filler? Are you losing any carbonation level?
A little, if you
a little bit. Right. You get bottle shock, I guess. I mean, I try to flush the bottle out with CO2 beforehand. Okay. And then as I'm going into it, my counter pressure bottle filler, I will flush out with CO2, start pouring beer immediately, and then have that filled up.
Always taste your keg before you bottle.
Yeah, because it could be funky.
I had a Belgian that 2 weeks before I'm going to bottle it, and it was probably about 3 volumes, and cool, let's go for it.
Okay.
I bottled about half a case, and I just said, let's taste this, and then it was flat.
Well, that's a good point, because when you start out with a full keg of 5 gallons of beer, I start out, be careful, because you can take a beer bath. Start out at 4 to 6 pounds of pressure. Fill that first bottle up. Who cares? As long as you get it filled and it didn't blow up on you, you're set. But 12 beers, 16 beers later, you're going to bump up your pressure anywhere from 15 to 20 pounds.
Different beers behave differently. I have some, like a golden ale, I can get over to the capper. No big deal.
Yeah.
And I've got a pail that just, as soon as I pull that thing out of there, I can't get it on there. It's foaming all over the place.
Really?
And they get funky. Jameel came up, I think I got it from you, John, that Jameel says, I used to get everything cold, bottles cold, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Jameel said, well, just crank up the pressure on everything.
Yeah.
And then bottle in a warm bottle.
Okay.
And so I crank it up to about 20, 25, and bottle then, I get no foaming.
Yeah.
The beer's really cold. And the bottle will get cold too, and my hand does too.
Right.
But,
but I'd say start low, but then creep it up after like 3 or 4 bottles.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. How about a nitrogen CO2 question? / CO2. Guys, got any info about that? You want me to give it to you?
Your stout was awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
In carbonating a stout with a nitrogen CO2 mix, what percentage of CO2 to nitrogen do you use? And then should you carbonate with 100% CO2 and then save it with nitrogen instead?
You can, but you're making it difficult.
Okay.
Generally, there's a beer gas mix you can get. It's nitrogen's about 70% and CO2 about 30%.
Okay.
What you need to do is you need to have a low carbonated beer.
All right.
At about 2 volumes. And then you got to run it through a stout faucet. Stout faucet's going to take about 30 pounds of pressure to push it through. Well, if you push your keg with 30 pounds of pressure of CO2, you're going to have an overcarbonated keg in a day and a half. So that's why they do the partial pressure with the CO2 and nitrogen mix.
Okay.
For a couple of different reasons. You can crank up the pressure, but only 30% of that CO2 is going to go into solution. So if you crank it up to 30 pounds, 1/3 of that is only CO2, you're going to get only 1/3 of that is CO2.
Okay.
Then, but you have all the pressure behind to get it through the faucet, because it's got to go through that little restrictor plate, and it wants to break out all of that solution.
Gotcha.
Nitrogen doesn't dissolve so good in solution, but it does to a point. And one of the reasons they do use it is because nitrogen bubbles are very stable in the air. CO2 is not much CO2 in the atmosphere, so the little bubbles want to pop because they want to go dilute the atmosphere. But most of our atmosphere is nitrogen. So when you have a nitrogen bubble, it hangs around. That's why that lacy, thick, foamy head sticks around so long.
Gotcha. It's happy.
It's happy because it's happy. You know, it doesn't want to dilute the atmosphere, but it's already 70%.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So 70-30 is
that's what you just go when it's an air gas mix. That's what you get with the it's called a beer mix, I think. Right. And you just tell them when you fill it, and they'll fill it to the and it's just whatever the mix is. You don't get to pick.
Oh, it's all in one tank.
It's all in one tank, and you don't get to mix that.
Okay.
And that's what it is. And you're going to need about whatever volumes of CO2. Let's say I want a 2.0 beer at let's say 40 degrees.
Okay.
Then we go up to about 8 pounds.
Okay.
Well, it's only 8 pounds of CO2, but that's 1/3, so you're going to need about 32 pounds of pressure.
Okay.
Wow.
But the nitrogen doesn't dissolve in there at the same as the CO2 does. But you need the pressure behind it to get it through that stout faucet. Okay. But if you're going to pour it through a regular faucet, it's going to come out like a gangbusters.
Yeah. Right. It's going to be awful.
So invest into the stout faucet.
Okay.
It's a good thing.
Okay. Fair enough. I want to wrap it up, guys.
Let's do it.
I think we covered carbonation and answered the questions.
Beat it to death.
Yeah. Hey.
One other thing I could like to plug is when you're I love you too. When you counter pressure bottle fill and you're going from a keg, when you fill like a case worth of beer, you're going to need more pressure and head pressure to serve it.
Okay.
So you got to compensate too as you're actually counter pressure bottle filling.
Okay.
So your actual pressure that you're serving out will go up as you're down to maybe the last gallon or two of beer.
Okay.
So.
All right. He is the counter pressure bottle filler master. It's good stuff. Yeah. I got to get one of those little gadgets from you too.
I think I did like 500 beers.
Really?
This year.
For competition and stuff. Nice.
It's fun.
All right.
Drink one, bottle one.
Here's what we're going to do. We are going to wrap it up as far as the live show, but what we've got ready for you now is a Farmhouse Ales lecture coming up. It's taken from the National Homebrew Competition this year. Johnny was there. It's Phil Markowski, who's the brewmaster at Southampton Public House in Southampton, New York. And he's great with Belgian strong ales and other farmhouse ales. And it's an hour-long lecture. If you're not going to stay awake for the whole thing, it's cool. I'm going to replay the whole show starting tomorrow night. And that way you'll be able to catch it again. But we're going to play that right now. I'm going to do our good old outro song. And then play the lecture after that. Daniela, what's happening over there? You got some things to say? Get the microphone there.
I want to help a buddy out now.
Yeah.
Oz Brewer has been with us all the show long. It's midday in Australia now, and his wife, Diane. Diane, this message is for you. Please do me a favor and take your awesome husband out to the Belgian Beer Cafe now, as it's only midday in Australia.
Oh, perfect.
Have a good day. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It was a great show. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela, for working the chat room. Go to the Belgian Beer Festival with him. I mean, that's what we talked about anyway, right?
Yeah.
So go have some Belgians. They're only like 9% alcohol. Yeah, you won't have to, if you take him there, you won't have to deal with him for the rest of the night because he's going to pass out when he gets home. Unless that's a bad thing, then he's really good at taking his alcohol and he'll be a happier person when he gets home. Whichever one works for you, Oz, send that to her. Okay. Thanks, Daniela. That was cool. And join us in the chat room again next week. We always appreciate your
Marin
input.
Brewing Company.
I want to extend a thank you to Crotch Rot, a good friend of the show. The archive that we replayed for the last couple days, it was playing, I think, Friday and Saturday, was brought to you by Crotch Rot himself, because our archiver didn't work, because I didn't push the archive button. And luckily, Crotch Rot came through like 5 minutes after the show. He's right there with our archive for us. So thanks, dude. We always appreciate your help.
Yes, thank you very much.
The other brewers, thank you, because you got it. If you like the show and you got friends that like beer and talking about beer and drinking beer, tell them about it, because I can tell you right now, the only way we're sticking around is if people are into it. And right now, people are very into it. We just need to keep it going, and that will help us help you. The more support we get, the more information we can bring you, the more brewers, the more manufacturers. We're gonna start working on white labs, people getting in here, and other media sources like Brew Your Own. We're gonna talk to all sorts of people to keep trying to get them in here. We're gonna go to festivals. I'm going to the Oregon Brew Festival. I'm going to leave Friday morning. I'll be coming back probably just before showtime, and I'm going to take a bunch of interviews while I'm up there. I'm going to try to talk to the organizers of the festival and a bunch of breweries. I mean, there are so many breweries there that I'm going to have access to, and I'm going to bring a microphone and a recorder and try to get a bunch of just good stuff for you guys and interviews to post up and play on the show. So, like I said, we can really bring more of that to you the more you tell people about us. So it helps us help you. That's all. But so far, everybody's been great, and we've had a great response, and we really appreciate it here at the Brewing Network. We've been doing it for almost
8th week.
Kind of got a little family started here.
Yeah, it's like 2 months now, and we got some regulars who just help us out and are very cool, and we get new people every week. We got some new callers today. That was great, and we're just really happy about it. I am personally thanking everybody out there, and I think that's awesome. So we're going to keep it up. You guys keep it up too.
Should we give them a heads up for next month, or
for what's coming? We got Vinny from Russian River coming in, right?
Okay.
Johnny talked to him for us, and he's coming in. We got Marin Brewing Company coming in next week.
The week after that's Colin from Downtown Joe's.
Okay.
Did he finally commit?
Yep.
Cool.
The week after that's Vinny from Russian River.
Yeah.
And the week after that's Matt from Firestone.
Right.
And the week after that
is potentially Triple Rock
right.
Brewery, which is in Berkeley here in California. So
the week after that,
what do you got?
Moonlight.
Brian
after
from
Moonlight Brewing Company.
Wow. So we got a great schedule for the next month or so. And we're just going to keep booking them and booking them and booking them. So
I think Charlie Papazian in October.
October?
Yeah.
Phone, I'm sure.
And we're going to go live from Prague on the 18th of September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prague?
Yeah, we got a guy who's out there going to Prague.
I thought we were going. You're taking us to Prague?
Yeah.
No, you are, Dr. Scott.
We're not going live, but somebody's calling us live, and we'll bring it to you guys. So that'll be cool. A little international beer stuff for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm sure all the people outside of America get sick of us talking about just American brewers all the time. So that'll be cool to get a Prague guy.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
All right, cool. That's what you call them? Prague guys?
Prague guy. Why not? Daniela's like just shaking her head at my ignorance right now. That's okay. I enjoy that. All right. So next week, Marin Brewing Company. I'm going to play you the Pale Ale song, of course, right now, because everybody loves it. I love it, in particular. Homebrew's a friend of mine. Pale Ale's a friend of mine. And then after that, stick around if you want some good information. It's Phil Markowski from Southampton Public House in Southampton, New York, talking about farmhouse ales. Thanks, everybody. It was a great show, and we'll see you next week. Dr. Scott,
cheers.
How much fun can you have before you go to hell, he wants to know.
It says that right on my shirt.
It's right on his shirt. Not enough.
Never not enough.
I'm pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week, everybody.
Pale ale is a friend of mine, and I sure like good barley wine. Chocolate porter, cherry stout, don't you know what I am talking about? Don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love it? Homebrew, can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all the time. Yeah, I think I have me, well, I have me one right now. They should know how to get down. Double and triple on my best friend. I think I'll have them all over again. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love that homebrew? Can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all of the time. Yeah, I think I'll have me, well, I'll have me one right now. me a wheat beer on a hot summer day. A bark will do me when the skies are gray. I'll take a Belgian brew anytime, and the women think the lambic fine. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love it, that homebrew? Can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all of the time. Yeah, I think I'll have me, well, I'm the one right now. Cherry stop, yeah, you know what I am talking about. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love it, that homebrew? Can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all of the time. Yeah, I think I have that, well, I'm the one right
now. You're listening to the Brewing Network.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the this morning's presentations, the National Homebrew Conference. My name is Ray Daniels. I'm Director of Brewers Publications, the outfit that puts out little books, kind of like this one, by the gentleman who's about to give our next talk. This book, Farmhouse Ales, is the first of a series of 3 books we're doing on brewing Belgian beers. And this one covers beers like Saison and Bier de Garde, Bier de Mars, and a few other more obscure ones. And the gentleman who's going to speak to us today is, of course, Phil Markowski from the Southampton Public House, Southamppan, New York. Phil is a talented brewer. He's been a professional brewer since 1989, and has won many awards at Great American Beer Festival, World Beer Cup, competitions like that. And perhaps one of his proudest achievements was being named the winner in 2003 of the Russell Share Award for Innovation in Brewing by the what was then the Association of Brewers, is now the Brewers Association. And that is an award which is not only given just to a single professional brewer each year, but it is an award which is elected by the previous recipients. And so it is an election by your peers, an indication amongst creative and innovative professional brewers that you are doing that sort of groundbreaking work. And a lot of the reason that Phil was recognized in that way is because of his work in the brewing of Belgian ales. So, time for me to shut up and let you listen to Phil. Let's have a warm welcome for Phil Markowski.
Thanks, Ray, and thank all of you for coming this morning. The AHA is I think it's still known, right? Near and dear to my heart because I started as a home brewer, as a number of professional brewers have. Recall I brewed my first batch in July of 1984, so almost 21 years. So my brewing career is of legal drinking age any day now. So it's just kind of wild to think of that because it doesn't seem like that long ago. But again, quickly, just to kind of recap my brewing career, I started as a professional brewer in 1989 with the New England Brewing Company in Norwalk, Connecticut. Left there in 95 to go up to New Hampshire to start a short-lived brewery called the Brewers Beer House in Merrimack, about a mile from the Anheuser-Busch plant. It was kind of interesting. Those guys used to come in for lunch all the time, so it was both intimidating and interesting. And then in 1996, I moved to Southampton, Long Island, New York, where I am today. So 16 years and running is my professional brewing career. Anyway, I was inspired to write this book on farmhouse ales for a number of reasons, but I felt that these styles, these types of beer, really needed someone to kind of try and explain them a little better because they can be awfully confusing, and especially confusing for those of us who are steeped in the style definitions that are obviously important for understanding beer in general, and we'll talk more about that later. But I really wanted to give these beers kind of the time of day, so to speak, something that that I thought that they were lacking, because people tend to kind of dismiss them, I think, because they don't fall into this neat style guideline. So confusing and daunting as that task was to try and explain these things, hopefully I can do that by the end of this lecture. There'll be a better understanding of what these beers are all about. Not used to laptops. I think I'm one of the few people left in the world who doesn't have a laptop. So what is a farmhouse ale? Well, simply put, a farmhouse ale is an ale that's brewed on a farm. Naturally, hundreds of years ago, there were much higher percentage of the population lived on farms than is the case today. And these people were self-sufficient. So they grew their own food, they raised their own food, and naturally brewed their own beer. Those of you, I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the story about saisons being produced to refresh farm workers, or perhaps ales in general had that practical purpose, and no doubt there's some truth to that. But what is also true is that these beers were brewed for consumption on the farm, not for commercial sale. So they were very likely very inconsistent and varied quite a bit over the course of a year, since they were not brewed for export. And you have to imagine on a farm there were different grains available, and or even hops or spices available at different times of the year. So in all likelihood these beers vary tremendously. And that legacy is alive today, where there are many, many interpretations of farmhouse ales, and particularly in the saison family. And again, we're going to delve into that a little deeper. Here we go again with the wrong button. Sorry about that. There we go. So farmhouse ales were produced for practical purposes. The refreshment, again, that story we're all familiar with. Refreshing workers, people inherently knew that water could sometimes make them ill, so they realized that beer did not, and so beer was the soft drink of the day. Again, this is long before Coca-Cola, orange juice, spring water, whatever. Beer was the beverage of choice, and as a result, people drank quite a bit of beer per day. There's one story going back to the Middle Ages claiming that the average person drank, or the average farm worker drank 5 liters per day. So that's a lot of beer. And that's, naturally you would expect it would be a low alcohol beer, which I'm sure was true at the time. But that same idea of refreshment, of a beer brewed for refreshment, lives on today with the modern interpretations of Belgian Saison. And then also, we can imagine, again, the days before there were sodas or even coffee or tea widely available, that these beers were probably brewed for energy. The beer with a high residual sugar content was a source of energy, and therefore would tend to fuel a farm worker, let's say, throughout the workday. Again, these would have to be low in alcohol in order to be used practically. But then again, that legacy of a higher residual sweetness lives on today with modern interpretations of French bière de garde. And one also has to imagine that on a farm where there was lots and lots of work to do, and people were working for their own survival, we have to imagine that brewing beer was really just another chore on the farm. These people, I'm guessing here, probably did not take the same level of passion that you people have to your brewing to their own brewing. It was another chore. They had to brew to survive, to drink beer, to have something to drink. They weren't trying to nail a specific style guideline. They weren't trying to reproduce a certain commercial example. So again, the quality of these beers probably varied tremendously, as well as their flavor profiles throughout the year. And one also would imagine that if we could go back in time today and drink those beers, we would likely find them unpalatable or full of flaws by today's definition. And the same is true if we could bring back a farm brewer from 200 years ago and give them modern day interpretations. They might find them kind of boring and sterile tasting and lacking characters that they wouldn't even know the terms for, but they might be wondering, where is the acetic acid character, where is the lactic acid character, where is the oxidation, where is the wood flavor, all of these things which must have been commonplace in that day, which have been, for the most part, phased out of modern interpretations. So what we're talking about is a region that was once known as French Flanders, which today encompasses the French departments du Nord and Pas-de-Calais primarily, as well as the western end of Wallonia, particularly the province of Hainaut in southern and southwestern Belgium. That's where there seems to be a particular concentration of these particular breweries today. This map, I know it's not defined in modern terms, but this region of Flanders Royale actually extends up into the southern Netherlands, what is today the southern Netherlands. And we can't really see, I believe the city of Torp is somewhere down in here. That's kind of like a hub in Hainaut. It's one of the larger cities in Hainaut, which is in this map in the Flanders Imperial region. Anyway, what is important is that there is a shared legacy of brewing, which what today encompasses two distinct countries, that of Belgium and northern France. And it's true of any brewery over time, but I think also true of farmhouse breweries in particular, that the ones that survived into the modern day survived because they changed with the times. They changed to adapt to changing consumer tastes and also market. And we'll talk more about that later. Yet at the same time, these breweries show a balance, a certain respect for tradition and traditional methods that live on today. But some of the most successful breweries have learned to adapt to changing times. So we're going to talk about modern farmhouse producers. In helping to try and define these styles, I saw myself as part reporter, simply reporting what the breweries in France and Belgium are doing today, and their commercial versions of Bière de Garde and Saison. And I also threw in some of my own experiences, and also, mainly the message I was trying to send in the book was to really take this information and come up with your own thing. And that's really what the spirit of this is. And that is how a lot of these breweries see this. They see it as producing something distinct rather than producing something exactly like the brewery down the road. So what we have done in order to help, or what I've done to try to better explain this family of farmhouse ales, is divided into two families, and that is French Bière de Garde and Belgian Saison. And we're going to take a look at each one of them individually. Again, I touched on the fact that beer styles evolve over time, and this is true really of any beer style. Your Pilsner is not your grandfather's Pilsner, et cetera, and that is also true of farmhouse ales. We know that historically geography has played a factor in beer style development. Way back in the day, before water chemistry was understood, brewers tended to empirically discover which type of beer worked well within their water source. Examples are Irish stouts, the Dublin, the pale ales of Burton, Pilsners of Bohemia, etc. Also, consumer tastes have driven beer style evolution, namely lager brewing. By far, most beer brewed in the world today is a Pilsner derivative or lager beer, and that has touched all aspects of beer styles, including farmhouse ales, and we'll talk again in more in depth about that as we go on. Technology is another factor. Modern breweries tend to use stainless steel. Wood fermentation is a thing of the past. It's now considered an experimental or specialty approach. Once upon a time, it was commonplace. And now we have brewers who no longer use copper vessels, which have more impact on a beer's flavor than a stainless steel vessel. Stainless steel is the norm. Technology also applies to knowledge and brewing science. We understand a lot more about brewing science than brewers did 100 years ago or 200 years ago. And we apply that in the modern day. So that influences the beer style evolution. And taxation may have less impact than you might think. The best example probably is in the UK, where beers are taxed based on original gravity. So they've tended to drop. Original gravities have tended to drop over the years. Whereas in the case of the farmhouse breweries, a lack of taxation has led to greater freedom, where in fact those versions of Saison Bière de Garde have actually become elevated in alcohol content over the years in order to make them, quote, more special in the marketplace. So taxation is a factor as well. Style guidelines. We're all familiar with them, and we know that they're very important, especially when you're first getting into understanding beer and appreciating beer. They're obviously important for communicating to a consumer. You know, if you call it Joe's Fantastic Ale, I mean, what does that really mean? If you call it Joe's Pale Ale or Joe's Brown Ale, people have an expectation of what to expect. And naturally the same is true of farmhouse ales in general. But style guidelines are important also, obviously, for beer competitions. There has to be some sort of benchmark to measure these beers up against in order to, see who stands out or is most accurate. But these are not necessarily gospel. It is one way, it is not the only way to define or understand beer. And in fact, it does not fly in Belgium and France. They take an entirely different approach. Their approach is more to associate a beer with a particular region than it is a, preset definition. And above all, what they strive to do is produce something that is uniquely their own. And if you press them, they might say, okay, my beer de garde is kind of like the guys down the road, but mine is different. That's the thing they emphasize. Mine has individuality. Mine's a little different. That is their approach. And so that's why we see such wide variation within these interpretations of French and Belgian farmhouse ales. Here again, that's what I said. They emphasize uniqueness and individuality, and they do not, they're not beholden to predetermined style guidelines, as, say, German brewers might be. There's lots of freedom, and they take full advantage of it, and that's their approach, and that's important to remember that.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
So let's talk a bit about French specialty brewing. We all know the Belgians get gobs and gobs of praise for their strong beer culture, and rightly so. But the French, we don't really hear much about their brewing culture, and God knows the French get enough credit for all things gastronomic, but the brewing history of the northern French is not really well publicized. They do have a long tradition of low alcohol brewing, which again is consistent with the original intent of a farmhouse ale to be drinkable without being incapacitating. So lower alcohol beers, typically in the range of 3 to 4%, were long the case in France. And they tended to be lager beers in more modern times. Again, they adapted with the times. They also have a history of malt-accented specialty brews. You see the labels listed here. The Bock beer was commonly brewed in France, and they tended to be obviously malt-accented. But unlike the German Bocks, they were lower in alcohol. Again, in the 3 to 4% alcohol range. More like a typical table beer. And you see both these labels here were from Brasserie Ricoeur, the brewers of Toilmont, which they completely retooled themselves and reinvented themselves in the early 1980s as a specialty producer. Had a long history of producing lager beers, abandoned that when French specialty brewing kind of was going through its renaissance, and their case is not unique either. There's a number of breweries that we'll talk about who had done the same thing. So these breweries do change with consumer preferences, and some French brewers I spoke to have lamented the fact that they have a tendency to change perhaps too quickly with times and not hold fast to their brewing traditions, as have their Belgian brethren. So the French certainly have adapted to changing consumer tastes, and some argue a little bit too quickly. Now, the history of bière de garde in general, or French specialty brewing, it's hard to say how much of it is really history and how much of it is marketing. Now, we tend to like to believe, or some of us like to believe, that these things have not changed for generations, that these beers have been brewed the same way forever. And, there are people who write about beer on more the romantic side of it, and they do it far better than I could ever do it. That's why I took more of a kind of a reporter's approach, just saying this is what people tell me is how it is, and there were some surprises to me. I would have thought the French bière de garde as we know it today has been around a little bit longer than the 25 or 30 years that it has been in its current incarnation. The story behind the movement in French specialty beers started in the mid-1970s as Belgian brewers began to export more and more beer to France, where it was becoming quite popular. And if you know anything about the French, they're very they have this need to kind of reinvent things and make them French. So they began to look for French versions, and really the only one that was around was Genlan Bière de Garde, which apparently had existed in its incarnation since the 1940s, late 1940s, in the tall bottle and the classic wire hood and corked finish, which is the standard look for French Bière de Garde today. So that really only goes back to the late 1970s. And apparently college students discovered the Genlan Bière de Garde and became wildly popular. Not unlike in my day, Rolling Rock was when I was in college. And I believe Pabst Blue Ribbon is going through, or maybe has already gone through its resurgence as kind of a cult beer. So that was more or less what happened. And so as a result of their success, a lot of brewers followed suit. There were some other spin-offs, other French specialty brews that are maybe lesser known but still kind of fall into the Bière de Garde umbrella. Bière de Mars being one of them, which, as the story goes, was an Alsatian tradition, and Alsace being a little bit south of Nord and Pas-de-Calais, and actually bordering Germany. That, if you know anything about recent history, that area has changed hand many times over, and people who live in those areas are bilingual, and certain buildings look German and certain buildings look French, and that the brewing in that part of France tends to be more of the German lager influence. But it is said that this style of Bière de Mars is a tradition in that area. But the other story goes that on farms it was brewed in late winter when a new crop of ingredients were coming in, supposedly, and also when the brewers had their cellars at their coolest. They had kind of learned empirically that when their cellars were cooler and they used fresh ingredients, they produced the best beer of the season. At least that's how the legend goes. And then there was, I guess, economic pressure to get money coming into the brewery because people weren't really drinking beer in the winter. So in March, they tended to come up with this campaign of, a spring beer or March beer to kind of jumpstart the beer drinking season again. That's anyway how the legend goes. Whether it's really true or not, I don't know, but still it's interesting and it's inspirational at the same time. And then there's the Bière de Noël, which a lot of these breweries produce. And as is typical with Christmas ales or holiday ales in general, they tend to be darker, more malt accented, and higher in alcohol content. A number of these breweries who produce standard Bière de Gardes also produce a Bière de Noël, and again, they all tend to fit that profile of higher alcohol and more malt character. Let's talk a bit about Bière de Garde. I've had the experience of entering Bière de Gardes in competitions and get feedback. I know other people have gotten the same feedback that says, doesn't taste very Belgian, which is 100% correct. It's not Belgian at all. In fact, it's French. So that is one mistake people make, assuming it's all kind of lumped into one little category, and it's quite different from Belgian Saison, or anything else Belgian for that matter. The characteristics that we see with Bière de Garde are a predominantly malty character. And again, that seems to be a French tradition. They tend to like their beers more malty as opposed to hoppy. There's some hops in there for accent, but typically they're malty, and they have a subtle yet sophisticated malt makeup, generally. What also differentiates Bière de Garde from other styles of beer, they tend to be well attenuated. That is compared to a all malt brew of similar original gravity, such as a Bock beer or a Doppelbock beer. Bière de Gardes tend to have a leaner finish, lighter body than a Bock beer, for example, even though they're of similar original gravity. They tend to fall in, at least in modern interpretations, in the range of 6 to 8% alcohol by volume. And then another classic trait of French Bière de Garde is the cork and wire cage finish, which started with Genlan Bière de Garde apparently in the late 1940s, and then became the norm as these other breweries followed suit and produced their own versions of Bière de Garde. Look a little deeper into physical characteristics. Original gravities tend to be in the range of 15 to 18 Plato, with final gravities in the range of 2 to 3 Plato, resulting in apparent degrees of attenuation in the range of 82 to 87%. Again, a little drier than your typical all malt brew. But I should also add that some French Bière de Garde brewers do use a little bit of sugar adjunct, but generally not more than, say, 5% by extract. Just a subtle amount to kind of dry the flavor out. But by no means do all of them use it. Some do, some don't. It's just the way it is. Bitterness in the range of 15 to 25 IBUs. Again, interpretations vary, just as in any other beer style. Hops generally there just as a background accent and never to the fore. Resulting in alcohol contents of, I'd said earlier, 6 to 8%, but here it says 6 to 9% for some reason. I think there are some that do tend to produce something a little stronger. Again, it's probably an effort to stand out. So, brewing considerations for brewing your own version of French Bière de Garde. Naturally, you would tend to want to use French malt and hops. And luckily, French malt is available here in the U.S. The Franco-Belge line of malts has quite a range of specialty malts, which can give you varying degrees of classic maltiness. Again, there's endless possibilities with the range of malts available. French hops are a little bit tougher to find. Classically, the French tend to use a Magnum hop for bittering, somewhere the higher alpha range hops for bittering, and then save the more expensive noble hops, the Strieselspalt being the most common Alsatian hop. They save that for the finish. And I can get Strieselspalt hops through Hop Union. I don't know if any of you have tried to get these hops and come up short, but I imagine there's some suppliers who will sell them to you. Good substitutes would be Saaz, something with a spicy Saaz or Hallertau, herbal spicy profile to them if you can't get the Strieselspalt. The use of a neutral yeast strain. Now this again is something that I think separates the French approach from the Belgian approach. Many of these breweries use a neutral strain of yeast, and some in fact use lager strains at a higher temperature, say in the range of 60, 62 degrees Fahrenheit. And I believe that's a holdover to some of these breweries having a history of being low alcohol lager producers and then switching gears in early 1980s to become a specialty beer producer. They probably opted to stick with the yeast that they knew intimately rather than change to something else. So some of them do in fact use lager yeast for Bière de Garde production, and others use ale yeast at slightly elevated temperatures. But universally, they tend to keep yeast profile relatively neutral, especially compared to the Belgians. And something else that is interesting is a lager-like conditioning regimen, which you might consider for your own versions. After primary fermentation, many of these brewers adopt a typical classic lager beer conditioning regimen, meaning 4 to 6 weeks at cool temperatures. Cool meaning close to freezing, 32 to 35 Fahrenheit. And again, that is very typical of lager beer production. And I think many of the commercial French brewers today, if they've had formal schooling at all, it's likely that they've had schooling in lager beer brewing. And whether they did that in Germany or France is maybe beside the point, but I think that was very typical of their education, so they apply it in their approach to producing these beers. And another interesting note is that the term garde really is the French term for lager. And some even are apt to think that the term Bière de Garde really means beer that is lagered, or ale that is lagered. And again, this conditioning gives it more of a cleaner, smoother character, and that is, again, a typical attribute of French Bière de Garde. And then the other is the cork finish. Now, for homebrewing, I know the typical cork and wire hood finish is rather difficult to do, but you could always do a cork and then a crown over it. Get a small cork, and if you're going to bottle your homebrewed Bière de Garde, I think the cork does add a certain characteristic, a certain musty cellar character, which again distinguishes Bière de Garde from other specialty beers. So some of the classic French producers, Brasserie Duic, located in the town of Genland, better known as Genland, produces Genland Bière de Garde, which is the widely considered the granddaddy of them all, which goes back to the late 1940s and its present incarnation. And then again, the popularity in the late 1970s, that spawned a bunch of other higher alcohol French versions of Bière de Garde. Brasserie Tellier is another old one. They claim to be the oldest brewery in France. And they have produced something called Bière de Garde for a very long period of time. However, it appears that until the late 1970s, it was a lower alcohol version, somewhere in the range of 3 to 4%. And then once Genlon had its success, Brasserie Tellier revamped its flagship called La Bavazienne, which is available here in the States, to a more typical 6 to 8% alcohol range. I believe it's 15.5 Plato original gravity these days. Brasserie Castellane produces the Chitti line of specialty brews. Again, this brewery was known for low alcohol lager production, and then completely reinvented themselves in the 1980s to produce now is the Chitti range of Bière de Gardes. They produce one as blonde, amber, and brown, which no doubt confuses people in terms of using that Bière de Garde label. And then another is Brasserie La Choulette. Once again, a brewery that produced low alcohol lagers that switched gears in the 1980s to produce specialty beers. And they stand out as one of the few who does bottle conditioning. And also they seem to have the most expressive yeast strain of any of the other French specialty brewers. And their products are also available here in the States, somewhat sparingly, but they are exported.
You are tuned in to the Brewing Network and listening to a recorded lecture given by award-winning brewer Phil Markowski, brewmaster at Southampton Public House. It was given at the National Homebrew Competition in Baltimore this year, and it's about Belgian strong ales and his book Farmhouse Ales. So we'll get you right back to it.
We'll just take a quick look at Brasserie Tellier. This is a classic family-owned farm brewery. It's been in the same family for generations. It's not located in a farm area, so to speak. It's in a small town called Vevey. And I drove right past the place, and in the corner of my eye I saw the pallets of bottles and cases up over the stone wall. Otherwise, I would have not guessed there was a brewery there. But the brewery, the family lives in the front of the house. The front of the building here is where the family lives, and then the attached buildings of the brewery. Really interesting and really traditional. They claim to have been brewing since within this family since the turn of the century, of the last century, that is. So interesting case. As I say, they produced a Bière de Garde, or a product they called Bière de Garde, for a very long period of time. However, in the past 25, 30 years, it has been elevated in terms of alcohol content and original gravity. And the present-day flagship, La Bavazienne, is available here in the States from time to time, and to me it's a very classic example. You can see their brew house here has kind of an interesting layout. Rather than have stacks going all the way up to the roof, they have these kind of conical hoods that capture the steam. And then apparently they get a very, very vigorous boil there, and they claim to use only Pilsner malt, but the resulting product is quite dark for being made with only Pilsner malt. They get a really tremendous direct fire boil, and the caramelization that they experience is quite unique. And this interesting brew house layout here is said to, again, it's another story, you wonder if it's true or not, but it does kind of make sense, that between the World Wars, the brewers and there were many brewers who during World War I had their breweries stripped by the German soldiers to make munitions, and they had kind of learned from that, and came out with this kind of layout here. I saw this in a couple of other breweries where this is located in a hayloft, and apparently they had the option during World War II of covering up the brewery with hay, so the Germans wouldn't know that there was equipment to be scrapped or made into munitions, and it saved a couple of these breweries apparently, if that's really true. Very interesting story though. Here are the Telliers. That is Armand on the right. He is the patriarch of the brewery. He became de facto brewmaster at age 15 when his uncle was imprisoned during World War II. And he is retired from the brewery but is still active in the sales and has turned over the brewing duties to his son, Michel, who is the current brewmaster. I guess he's in his early 30s, early mid-30s. And the family, again, lives right there. They roll out of bed and roll right into the brewery in the morning if they choose. So. And it's a small brewery. They're doing roughly 2,000 barrels, U.S. barrels per year. So very small. And again, La Bavazienne, the flagship, is available here in the States from time to time. Now let's talk about the Saison family, which some might argue is more interesting and more characterful than Bière de Garde, but I feel Bière de Garde is interesting in its own subtle way. The Saison family, again, in the modern days, many of the breweries that have survived and exist today are in the western section of Hainaut province in the southwest along the French border. There's also kind of another legend about a similar brew called Grisette, which, as the legend goes, this was a beer similar to Saison that was produced to refresh miners as the economy in the area changed from an agricultural to a mining economy. Apparently there was either this special brew produced or something that was very similar to Saison produced and simply relabeled to appeal to that generation of worker. Whether that's really true or not, I don't know, but again, an interesting story. There's one version of Grisette still produced today, and I haven't had it, but I'm told it's produced by a larger brewery and tends to be a little bit nondescript. Doesn't mean that there's not room for new and exciting interpretations down the road. So again, an interesting story. Grisette, loosely defined as, say, a lower alcohol version of Saison. So let's talk about what distinguishes Saison as its own style family. What I find is that there's a notably complex, fruity, spicy character, which can be entirely yeast-driven, or it can be a combination of yeast and ingredients added, be they spices or fruits. I mean, basically anything goes, as you may already know, with some commercial versions of Saison. And just a note on that, I mean, some people tend to think that in order to be Saison, it has to have a spices added, which is not how the Belgians approach it. There are many or a number that take pride in the fact that they don't use spices at all, which is not to say that there's not a use for them. It's a way to really distinguish your beer from someone else's by adding particular spices, botanicals, fruits, whatever. And there's a number of breweries that do that with lots of freedom, which makes it kind of interesting. Something else that really distinguishes Saison in my mind is that they are extraordinarily well attenuated. Some are very, very dry, and again, they have higher degrees of apparent attenuation than other beer styles typically have, with perhaps the exception of an adjunct lager or something that's got a good degree of adjunct added to it. Also, Saisons, in my mind, tend to stand out from other Belgian brews in that they have more of a hop character. And again, Saison DuPont is a good example of that. Belgian specialty ales in general, at least historically, have not had hops to the fore as the Saisons have, perhaps. There are some versions of newer Belgian brewers, De Dole and De Ranke come to mind as those who are starting to use a lot more hops. But traditionally, hops were very much in the background with Belgian specialty ales. And again, that is one characteristic I think that makes Saison stand out from others. And then the fact that bottle condition, which is certainly not unusual in Belgium, but that continued interaction between the yeast and the brew as it ages does help the flavor evolve and often makes something more distinctive over time. So we'll look at some typical physical parameters of Saisons. And this data was compiled from measuring a number of commercially available versions of Belgian Saison. Typical original gravities ranged from 12 to 14.5 Plato, with more tending toward the 12 to 13 range than the higher end of the spectrum. Final gravities in the range of 0.5 to 1.6 degrees Plato, which result in apparent attenuation of 89 to 96%. Again, extraordinarily high degrees of attenuation. And bitterness in the range of 15 to 32 IBUs, and alcohol by volume in the range of 4 to 7%. And just in case you're wondering which commercial versions on the final gravity, I think that's the most interesting. The commercial brew that came in at 0.5 degrees final gravity, apparent final gravity, was Saison de Potre from Brasserie Blogy, which you can get here in the States, again, sparingly. It's brought in by Shelton Brothers, and they're not always consistent about bringing beer in all the time. It's sort of when they feel like it. Yes, a potre is the French word for spelt. And then at the higher range, relatively speaking, at 1.6 degrees Plato, that was Saison Silly, which is one of the darker, seemingly more full-bodied interpretations, and one of the older interpretations out there. I was quite surprised, actually, to measure it that low. I thought it would be higher because it just seems fuller, but 1.6 degrees. So that's an attenuation of about 89%, so that's quite high. And then on the bitterness range, at the low end, 15 IBUs, that was also Saison Silly, and the high range, as you might expect, that's Brasserie DuPont's Saison DuPont at 32 IBUs. So, brewing considerations for brewing your own version of Belgian Saison. The use of a highly expressive yeast strain, which there are a number of them out there, but the no-brainer is Saison DuPont. Very unique yeast. Do devote some coverage in the book on it. It's very interesting yeast. Continues to frustrate me and other brewers I know who try to produce these beers commercially and are under pressure to kind of turn them over and free up the tank, and they're just very frustrating. And I'm still working on figuring this yeast out, which is part of the fun, but nevertheless frustrating at times. Again, the use of spices are optional. I think the word here is moderation. Sometimes people tend to go a little bit heavy on the spices, I think, and subtlety, moderation, I think, are nicer characteristics than being whacked over the head with coriander or something. A warm conditioning period. Again, that's kind of a different approach with saisons for a lot of Belgian beers, is a warmer conditioning period where the brew, after its primary fermentation, or at least the visual side of primary fermentation is done, a continued warm aging with either the same yeast strain or whatever else is in this particular strain. Some of these saison yeasts are claimed to be multi-culture organisms, so by letting the ethanol-producing yeast kind of settle out, you reduce the population and give something else a chance to continue working. That's another aspect of brewing your own version of Belgian Saison. The cork finish, again, not so easy to get that classic wire hood look, but you could always put a cork in your bottle and put a conventional crown over that for flavor. And bottle conditioning. It's basically goes without saying that's the universal trait with Belgian Saisons, that they are bottle conditioned. And then there's something I call brewing with abandon, which we'll talk about here. As mentioned in the book, there's certain comfort zones that all of us as brewers have found ourselves in, and then trying to produce something more authentic, particularly authentic Saison, can kind of force us to step out of that zone. And by that I mean, in some cases, pushing your own personal limits of fermentation temperature. I think it's a legacy of early homebrewing texts being all British, that some people have this kind of line that they don't cross of 68, 70 degrees Fahrenheit as a temperature limit that they're comfortable with in fermentation. And indeed, at DuPont, they ferment quite high in the range of basically blood-warm temperatures in the 90s is their fermentation. And that approach is typical, I've learned, with red winemakers. It's a different mindset. The mindset is, let's get this thing fermented, not let's get this flavor profile or that flavor profile. It's let's get this thing fermented and get it out of the tank to another tank or a barrel or whatever the case may be. Do you need to ferment that high with DuPont yeast? I don't think you really need to, but it helps just reduce the time that you're waiting for it to finish. If anyone's used it and experienced a stuck fermentation, then you're not alone, because that's how that yeast tends to be. Allowing for warm aging and multiple strain cultures to work to their potential. A lot of people see the visible signs of fermentation cease and say, okay, it's done, now I'm going to put it in the bottle or refrigerator, cool it down, whatever. But in this case, patience can pay off, and giving other organisms time to work, or even the same yeast strain, which may in fact, at the latter end of fermentation, when there's maltotriose, there may tend to just have a very difficult time breaking down those sugars. It needs time and it needs warmth to be able to do that, and you need to wait. sometimes 4 to 6 weeks for the fermentation to cease. And with that said, it shouldn't be that you're leaving your brew on a big pile of sedimented yeast. You do want to rack it off to reduce the amount of yeast that you're sitting on, but still there's likely going to be something in suspension that's going to continue working and slowly settle out. And patience will pay off. You're going to get more enhanced flavor development, in my experience, and again, it's stepping outside of the usual approach. And then there's accepting low terminal gravity readings. If any of you make a habit of reading your terminal gravities, you may again have a certain comfort zone, and it's a different story here. As you saw from the measured final gravities, they can be extraordinarily low. So that's something that again you need to get comfortable with if you have a problem with that. So there we go. Do you dare? This is the temperature gauge on a primary fermentation tank at Brasserie DuPont. It's just over 30 degrees Celsius, which is 86, and I'm told they often get up to 35, which again is, approaching blood warm. Sounds shocking at first, but, really why not? It's stepping outside of a comfort zone. Why not? The beer doesn't seem to suffer for it. And it's their approach is they need to get that tank out of its, or that brew out of the tank so they can brew more. And what's curious about DuPont is they tend to do their warm aging in the bottle because it's more practical for their setup. They'll age for 6 to 8 weeks in the bottle at roughly 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Very unusual. But that's how they don't have the fermentation tank capacity to do it in the tank, so they choose to do it in the bottle.
You're listening to the Brewing Network.
So let's talk about Brasserie DuPont. Arguably the classic example, certainly one of the more available examples, and in my own opinion, one of the more pleasant examples to drink. I think it's a great beer. It's a classic, and yes, it has evolved over time. The current brewmaster, Olivier, admits that he has changed things subtly. Gravity's up a little higher than traditional Saison might be. And he used to dry hop it. Now he doesn't dry hop it anymore. So, these things are all real-life situations. Belgian brewers, as traditional as they might be, change with the times. And they do change things. And this is a brewery, I think, that's successful because they do combine modern approaches with traditional approaches. They don't filter their beer. They run it through a centrifuge. That's definitely a modern approach. Yet they have the patience to bottle condition the beer for 6 to 8 weeks because they feel that's necessary for the proper flavor development. And that's not an easy thing to do, nor is it an inexpensive thing to do. Brasserie DuPont uses a very unique and distinctive yeast strain. Again, it's covered in the book, some of the details of it. I mentioned that Les Perkins of Y Yeast Labs has made independent, he and other people have made independent observations that it smells quite a bit like a red wine yeast. And in fact, it seems to exhibit some of the characteristics of red wine yeast as I understand it. That is a need or even tolerance of very high fermentation temperature and also a kind of deficiency of free amino acids or free amino nitrogen, which whether or not this is really a red wine yeast strain or not is an interesting thought, but it is a very distinctive yeast, and if you use it and you show patience with it, you'll get some nice results. Great complexity of tropical fruit and spice characters that really I've never gotten from any other yeast. And again, they fermented this range of 30 to 35 degrees. So, shocking, but why? And they are modern where it counts. They have a modern packaging line and a very modern lab, which they would not let me near. So they have some secrets. They're very free with information otherwise, but they would not let me near their lab. I just had to throw in for the fun of it. We read about certain things and we get all uptight about things like hot side aeration. This is the knockout at Brasserie DuPont. What they are doing here is running out of their brew kettle, which is about 12 feet above their mash tun, which is what they're running into here. There's this pipe coming down and hitting this diverter plate, splashing into their mash tun, and filtering as kind of a crude first stage filter to filter out hot particles. They don't have a whirlpool tank, so they're just coming right out of their brew kettle, and this is their first phase of filtration. And then they actually centrifuge the wort hot, and then go into a heat exchanger and into the fermentation tank. They also use these unique square fermenters, which I had the picture of before, and see how I can get back here. There it is. They use these square fermenters. This is actually two on top of each other that you're seeing right here. And it could be said, or it's another interesting theory, as to whether or not the fermenter shape is actually important to getting a quick attenuation with this yeast. You could say that maybe because if it's a square shape, there might be zones of different temperatures where you get convection and churning going on that is maybe important to get a quick fermentation on this yeast, and also the fact that you've got lower osmotic pressure on the yeast as a result of it being a shallow tank. You know, they seem to think it's important. Whether it really is or not, I don't know. So a review. Farmhouse ales have evolved according to modern tastes and technology, yet they do retain a certain rusticity to them. And again, the French and Belgian approach is that they're looking to be individuals. They're not looking to, fall into a neat, tidy style definition. In fact, they want to fall outside of a style definition just a little bit, just to say they're different, theirs is unique. And then when it comes to brewing these styles, particularly the saisons, creativity and imagination are, you could say, the fifth ingredient. So that's it. Any questions? Yes, sir.
You know the output of Saison DuPont?
I believe it's in the 3,000 to 5,000 barrel range. I think I don't know if I have it in the book, but these details escape me now. It's been a couple of months since I've thought of it. Yes.
You use the strain yourself, the DuPont strain?
I have used the DuPont strain, yes. And as I've said, it continues to be very frustrating. I've found that you get primary fermentation. Let's start at 14 degrees Plato, for example. By 11, 10 degrees Plato, it just suddenly hits the wall, as if suddenly you cooled it down to 35, where in fact it's up at 80 degrees or so, and then just chugs along very, very slowly. I've tried aggressive aeration. I've tried doubling, where I'm brewing one half of the batch one day, and then the next day come in with the second half. Very high aeration, and seem to make a difference. What has made a difference with me is adding glucoamylase enzyme, just as an act of desperation. I added that to the fermenter, and the yeast went crazy. Then another time it didn't work. So it's a mystery, but then again, that's what kind of makes brewing appealing, is that you never quite figure it all out. Yes.
And you recommend this product where we might have a good chance of obtaining yeast culture?
Well, Dave Logson's in the back of the room. I think he's a guy who supplies yeast cultures from time to time. Some of these commercially available. The gentleman is asking if...
yes, they are. As a matter of fact, we work with a number of different saison-type yeast, and we're currently experimenting with blending strains together to try to improve that fermentation profile that Phil's talking about. We've got a number of breweries that are using some mixed cultures right now. So it's very satisfying results for us. So it looks very promising. The saison style has gotten so popular here in the U.S. that there's an awful lot of breweries brewing style, and home brewers as well. So there's lots of opportunities to experiment, and there's a couple of different strains, like what Phil mentioned earlier. Instead of being yeast expressed flavors, using spices and some of the other Belgian strains is also a very common practice among both professional and home brewers.
White Labs has come out with a couple of new Belgian sound.
A lot of brewing and experimenting with them as well, so we got the first-hand knowledge of how they perform. We help you out.
And culturing your own yeast is still an option as well, and it's not as difficult as you might think. If you get a fresh example, the yeast can start up right away in the bottle and then just grow it from there. And yes?
You mentioned warm bottle conditioning, what temperature range do you mean by warm? Same as fermentation?
No, not necessarily. If again, the DuPont model is that they primary ferment in the high 80s, low 90s to get the yeast, to get the fermentation, the primary fermentation done. And then they transfer to bottles and they condition for a long period of time at a lower temperature, in the range of 72, 74 Fahrenheit for 6 to 8 weeks. That's their approach. And they also do something unusual, and they condition the bottles on their sides. You ever seen a bottle of DuPont with a stripe of sediment that doesn't wash off on the side of the bottle? That's the indicator. It's done on its side, and they seem to think that's very important for the flavor development. And logically, it makes sense in that you've got a greater surface area of contact between the yeast and the beer, and contact with the cork as well. So you get some of that flavor, possibly. Yes, sir.
Going back to the bière de garde, you mentioned that it typically has a musky cellar type aroma flavor, and you mentioned the cork is helping develop that. Is there any other suggestions as to how to develop that flavor?
I do think that the French malts sometimes have that contribute a little bit of that musty character. The water in that area of France is hard with temporary hardness with calcium carbonate, and I think if you don't neutralize the water, if the French brewers don't neutralize the water, which I know some of them do and some don't, you tend to extract more of the husk tannin and flavor from the husk. And I think sometimes not only do you get more of that classic husky character, but you may get a little bit of what appears to be a musty, kind of cellar-like character from the grains as well. Any other questions? Yes?
You elaborated on yeast strains and conditioning and stuff like that. How about grain bill? Any considerations in the combination of grains in the composition of the beer style?
You have to buy the book.
Very good. Go, Bill, go.
All right. Yes.
On your Bière de Mars, you talk about the cooler temperatures that they were fermented at. So the farmhouse type Bière de Mars, were they fermented primarily in the months of November, December, January, February, so we can assume they were down into the 40s?
Again, the question is about Bière de Mars and the lower fermentation temperature. I have to say that what I was told is legend at best. But I was told by a couple of brewers that these brews were made in the middle of winter when the cellars were cooler. How much cooler, it's hard to say, but cool enough or warm enough where, assuming that the ale strains, whatever kind of yeast strain they were using at the time, could still work. Whether it got down into low 50s or high 40s as a typical lager beer production, I don't really know. And, again, in the modern approach, there seems to be a little bit more lager-like characteristic to the Bière de Mars than, say, the standard Bière de Garde. And it seems to, follow with that legend. But as far as hard facts on that, they don't exist as far as I've been told. Yes?
You mentioned multiple yeast conditions. I was curious, in particular with DuPont, do you know, are they using the same yeast strain at multiple times? There's rumors that some brewers will add a lager yeast at the end, and in regards to starting yeast out of a bottle, you wonder is it in the case of DuPont, is it DuPont yeast or is it a later addition of lager yeast that is started up?
No, in their case, the question is with DuPont, do they use the different yeast strain to bottle condition their brew? And they emphatically, thank you, claim they use the same yeast, but they also claim that it's that it has 4 distinct strains in it, whereas others argue it's a single strain. I don't know. I have more of a tendency to think it's a single strain, actually, myself. But there are some commercial brewers I know in the U.S. who have, again, this whole experience of having a stuck fermentation or a very, very slow fermentation toward the end using DuPont yeast, out of either frustration or necessity, remove that yeast and then finish it with a, faster attenuating ale or lager strain. But I'm not aware of any Belgian brewery commercially producing a saison with 2 distinct yeast strains.
So there you have it. A great lecture given by Phil Markowski of the Southampton Public House and author of Farmhouse Ales. That was given at the National Homebrew Competition in Baltimore this year. The Brewing Network was there to record it and bring it back to you. This has been a presentation of the Brewing Network. Thank you very much, Phil Markowski, for allowing us to use your knowledge and spread it around to the world. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week.